By midday, you feel less like a traveler and more like a lightly seasoned piece of bread. Water becomes precious. Fortunately, Roman infrastructure includes milestones, way stations, wells, and stopping points along major routes. Unfortunately, not all water sources inspire confidence. You arrive at a roadside station where travelers refill containers and rest their animals. The water tastes interesting. Not necessarily bad. Just memorable. In the same way that accidentally biting a lemon seed is memorable. You drink anyway. Because dehydration is significantly worse. Nearby, a government courier changes horses with remarkable efficiency. The imperial postal system allows official messages to travel surprisingly quickly across vast distances. News can cross hundreds of miles far faster than most ancient societies ever achieve. Of course, ordinary travelers receive no such luxury. You continue moving at the speed of tired animals and human endurance. The afternoon grows warmer. The wagon grows less comfortable. Which somehow seemed impossible this morning. By now, you've discovered an important truth about ancient travel. The destination receives all the glory. The journey receives all the blisters. Still, there is something remarkable about watching the Roman world unfold around you. Farmers harvest grain beneath the sun. Merchants lead caravans loaded with goods from distant provinces. Soldiers march in disciplined columns. Children wave from roadside villages. The empire feels alive. Connected. Vast. And for a brief moment, you understand why Roman roads become legendary. Then the wagon hits a pothole large enough to rearrange your internal organs. The feeling passes. Mostly. As evening approaches, travelers begin searching for shelter. Because another important lesson of ancient travel is that darkness changes everything. Straight roads stretch across mountains, forests, rivers, and open countryside. Engineers survey routes with astonishing precision. Laborers move enormous quantities of stone. Entire legions sometimes help construct sections. Some Roman roads remain visible nearly 2,000 years later. Unfortunately, impressive engineering does not automatically equal comfort. You discover this fact almost immediately. A merchant offers you a place aboard his wagon. You climb up gratefully. Then the wagon begins moving. Every bone in your body files an official complaint. Roman roads are designed for durability, not passenger comfort. Beneath the wheels lies a carefully layered foundation of stone, gravel, and paving blocks. The structure survives centuries. Your spine may not survive the afternoon. Every bump travels directly from the road into the wagon. There are no shock absorbers. No padded seats. No suspension. Just physics. Very aggressive physics. Within minutes, you understand why many travelers prefer walking. At least when walking, the road only attacks your feet. The empire stretches endlessly around you. Fields of wheat ripple in the breeze. Vineyards climb gentle hillsides. Olive groves shimmer beneath the morning sun. In the distance, small villages cluster around temples, markets, and wells. The Roman world is enormous. At its height, it connects 3 continents and tens of millions of people. Messages, goods, soldiers, merchants, pilgrims, officials, and travelers move constantly through this network. Roads become the arteries of empire. And today, you are one tiny blood cell being bounced relentlessly through them. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher. Dust begins coating everything. Your clothes. Your hair. Your face. The inside of your nose. Ancient travel produces astonishing quantities of dust. Each passing wagon contributes another cloud. Horses stir it up. Wind carries it everywhere. Hey guys, tonight you're about to discover why being a passenger on a Roman road trip might permanently cure you of any desire to complain about modern travel. You think your last long drive was uncomfortable? That's adorable. Because tonight, you're traveling across the vast empire of ancient Rome, where the roads are legendary, the scenery is spectacular, and every single part of the journey is determined to test your patience in creative new ways. By sunrise tomorrow, you'll have developed a deep appreciation for suspension systems, clean bathrooms, and the revolutionary concept of not sharing your sleeping quarters with a suspicious mule. And honestly, you probably won't survive this. At the very least, you'll spend most of the trip questioning your life choices. So before we begin tonight's journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these sleepy adventures through history. And while you're settling in, leave a comment telling me your location and local time. I always enjoy seeing where in the world these stories are finding listeners tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe get comfortable beneath a blanket, and let's drift back nearly 2,000 years. The first thing you notice is the noise. Not the bustling noise of a modern city. A different kind of noise. The clatter of iron-rimmed wheels against stone. The snorting of horses. The groaning of overloaded wagons. The endless soundtrack of an empire on the move. You stand beside a Roman road shortly after dawn. Morning mist still hangs over nearby fields while travelers emerge from roadside inns and prepare for another day of journeying. The road beneath your feet looks impressive. And it should. The Romans spent centuries building one of the most remarkable transportation networks the ancient world has ever seen. Without modern lighting, roads become hazardous after sunset. Obstacles vanish into shadow. Directions become uncertain. Accidents become more likely. So one by one, wagons turn toward roadside inns. Smoke rises from chimneys. Lanterns flicker in windows. Animals settle into stables. And exhausted travelers finally climb down from their seats. You do the same. Your legs immediately forget how to function properly. Walking now feels strangely experimental. The inn itself is crowded. Very crowded. Merchants discuss prices. Soldiers exchange stories. Sailors complain about weather. Someone argues loudly about a mule. The mule appears unconvinced. Dinner arrives. Bread. Cheese. Olives. A little wine. After a full day of travel, it tastes magnificent. Not because it is extraordinary. Because hunger is the world's most talented chef. As darkness settles beyond the inn walls, conversations gradually soften. The road outside grows quiet. Tomorrow, thousands of travelers will continue moving across the empire. But tonight, the journey pauses. The horses rest. The wagons stand still. And somewhere beneath the stars of the ancient world, you drift toward sleep with aching muscles, dusty clothes, and a newfound appreciation for every modern vehicle ever invented. Sometime during the night, you wake to a sound that modern hotels work very hard to prevent. A rooster. Not a gentle rooster. Not a distant rooster. A rooster apparently determined to personally announce the existence of dawn to every living creature within 3 provinces. You sit upright immediately. For one confused moment, you have no idea where you are. Then the smell arrives. Smoke. Hay. Wet wool. Horse. A surprising amount of horse. And suddenly you remember. You are spending the night in a Roman roadside inn. The room around you remains dark except for a few fading embers glowing inside a small hearth. Nearby, several travelers continue sleeping with remarkable dedication despite the rooster's efforts. One man snores loudly enough to suggest structural concerns for the building. Another sleeps clutching a leather money pouch against his chest. Centuries may pass. Human nature changes very little. Outside, the first traces of dawn are beginning to appear. Ancient travelers love early mornings. Not because they enjoy them. Because they have no choice. Summer afternoons become brutally hot across much of the Roman world. Roads offer little shade. Wagons trap heat. Animals tire quickly. The smartest travelers cover as much distance as possible before midday. So while modern vacations often begin with sleeping in, Roman travel begins with stumbling awake before sunrise and questioning every decision that led you here. The inn courtyard is already coming alive. Stable boys carry wooden buckets. Merchants inspect wagon wheels. Servants sweep yesterday's mud from stone pathways. A mule stands perfectly still while staring into the distance with an expression suggesting it understands secrets beyond human comprehension. You are not entirely comfortable around it. Breakfast appears shortly afterward. Expectations should remain modest. There are no towering stacks of pancakes. No elaborate buffet. No fresh pastries arranged artistically beside imported fruit. Instead, breakfast consists primarily of bread. Bread remains one of the foundations of Roman life. Rich or poor, urban or rural, nearly everyone consumes enormous quantities of it. Some historians estimate grain provides the majority of calories for much of the population. This morning's loaf is dense enough to qualify as defensive equipment. Still, after yesterday's journey, it tastes surprisingly good. A little cheese accompanies the meal. Some olives. Water diluted with wine. Simple. Practical. Entirely sufficient. As the sun rises higher, travelers begin preparing for departure. Harnesses are checked. Ropes tightened. Barrels secured. Animals inspected. Long-distance travel requires constant maintenance because nearly everything can break. And eventually, something usually does. Roman roads may be famous, but they remain roads. Wheels crack. Axles fail. Horses lose shoes. Leather straps snap. Every journey becomes a small battle against wear and tear. One merchant nearby discovers exactly this problem. A wagon wheel has developed a serious crack. Immediately several travelers gather around to inspect the damage. Ancient roadside repairs attract attention for the same reason modern roadside breakdowns do. Everyone is secretly relieved the disaster happened to somebody else. The merchant does not look pleased. A replacement wheel could cost valuable time. And time matters. Especially for traders carrying goods to distant markets. As workers begin repairs, you watch the morning traffic flow steadily along the road. Pilgrims. Soldiers. Messengers. Farmers. Government officials. The Roman Empire is waking up. And every road seems alive with movement. For a brief moment, standing beside the great stone highway beneath the golden light of sunrise, you understand why these roads become legendary. They connect millions of people. Thousands of towns. Entire cultures. Ideas. Languages. Goods. News. They transform a vast collection of territories into something that feels connected. Then a wagon rattles past, covering you completely in dust. History has a wonderful habit of interrupting dramatic moments. Soon enough, your own wagon is ready. The horses stamp their feet. Passengers climb aboard. Bundles are secured. The driver gathers the reins. And with one final glance at the inn disappearing behind you, another day on the roads of ancient Rome begins. Section 3. The wagon has been moving for less than an hour when you become aware of a very important fact. Roman engineers are brilliant. Your spine disagrees. The road ahead stretches straight as an arrow toward distant hills glowing beneath the morning sun. It is an impressive achievement. Stone paving extends across the landscape with a confidence usually reserved for emperors and people who have never had to sit on a wooden wagon bench. Every bump finds you. Every stone introduces itself personally. Every mile feels strangely longer than the previous one. The merchant beside you seems completely unbothered. He has been traveling these roads for years. His body has apparently evolved special adaptations. Possibly extra bones. Possibly fewer. You are afraid to ask. The countryside unfolds steadily around the wagon. Golden fields sway in the breeze. Small farms dot the landscape. Occasionally the road passes shrines where travelers leave offerings for safe journeys. Ancient travel involves a surprising amount of hoping that various gods remain in a cooperative mood. You can understand why. A broken wheel in the wrong place could leave someone stranded for days. And while Roman roads connect much of the empire, they do not magically eliminate distance. The empire remains enormous, far larger than most people truly imagine. A merchant points toward the horizon where blue mountains rise beyond the fields. Goods from those regions eventually reach cities hundreds of miles away. Wine travels. Olive oil travels. Pottery travels. Cloth travels. People travel. The road never really rests. Some historians compare the Roman transportation network to the circulatory system of a giant living organism. Watching the steady flow of wagons and travelers, the comparison feels surprisingly accurate. Ahead, a caravan appears. Several pack animals move slowly beneath heavy loads while armed guards walk alongside. The merchant immediately pays attention. Not because he fears danger. Because he wants information. Ancient travelers exchange news constantly. There are no newspapers. No radio broadcasts. No messages arriving instantly across vast distances. Information moves at the speed of people. And people move on roads. As the caravan approaches, greetings are exchanged. Questions follow immediately. How are the roads ahead? Any bridges damaged? Any towns crowded? Any shortages? Any trouble? The answers matter. Good information can save days of travel. Bad information can create expensive mistakes. For several minutes, the two groups stand beside the road discussing conditions farther ahead. You realize something interesting. The Roman road system does more than transport goods. It transports knowledge. Every traveler carries stories from somewhere else. Every meeting becomes a small exchange of intelligence. An empire this large depends upon communication almost as much as transportation. The wagons continue onward. The sun climbs higher. The day grows warmer. Soon the air begins shimmering above the stones. You are discovering another challenge of ancient travel. Heat. There is a reason many travelers start before dawn. By late morning, the road feels entirely different. The cool comfort of sunrise has vanished. Dust hangs motionless in the air. Animals tire more quickly. Passengers become quieter. Even conversations slow down. Nobody wants to waste energy speaking when the sun is conducting experiments on human patients. The driver points toward a cluster of trees beside a stream. A stop. An extremely welcome stop. The wagons pull off the road. Horses lower their heads eagerly toward water. Passengers stretch stiff muscles. You carefully climb down. Your legs briefly forget their responsibilities. After several alarming seconds, they remember. Mostly. Nearby, travelers gather beneath the shade. The difference is immediate. Cool air. Flowing water. Birdsong. After hours on the road, the stream feels almost luxurious. A group of soldiers is already resting there. Their armor catches flashes of sunlight beneath the trees. Unlike merchants, soldiers often travel under strict schedules. Orders must be delivered. Garrisons supplied. Borders protected. The empire's roads are not merely commercial routes. They are military highways. Without them, Roman armies would move far more slowly. Without them, controlling such a vast territory becomes dramatically harder. You watch as one soldier removes his helmet and splashes water across his face. For a brief moment, he looks less like an instrument of imperial power and more like a very tired man having an extremely warm day. History often becomes easier to understand when viewed one exhausted traveler at a time. The rest period does not last long. Journeys rarely do. Distance remains undefeated. Soon the drivers begin calling people back. Animals are watered. Loads are checked. Wheels inspected. Everyone prepares to continue. That is when the shouting begins. Not angry shouting. Concerned shouting. Further down the road, another wagon has stopped unexpectedly. Several people are gathered around it. The problem becomes obvious immediately. One wheel has collapsed completely. The wooden rim lies twisted beneath the axle. The wagon is going nowhere. At least not today. Travelers gather to watch. Humans have always possessed a remarkable ability to become interested in somebody else's transportation problems. The stranded merchant looks miserable. His goods remain intact. That is the good news. The bad news is that repairs may take hours. Possibly longer. Replacement parts are not waiting conveniently at the next service center. Everything requires labor. Tools. Time. Patience. Mostly patience. As your own wagon rolls past, you notice workers already beginning repairs using spare wood, iron fittings, and considerable determination. The merchant beside you shakes his head. On Roman roads, he explains, everyone eventually becomes acquainted with bad luck. The question is never if something breaks. Only when. You continue onward beneath the afternoon sun. The road stretches endlessly ahead. The empire waits beyond the horizon. And somewhere in the distance, another adventure is already preparing to make your journey considerably more complicated. By mid-afternoon, the landscape begins to change. The broad farmlands gradually give way to rougher country. Hills rise higher. Forests gather closer to the road. The villages become smaller and farther apart. You are not exactly lost. But for the first time since beginning this journey, you become aware of how much empty land exists between destinations. Modern maps have a way of hiding this. A tiny line connects two cities. You assume the distance is manageable. Then you spend 8 hours rattling across stone roads behind a horse and discover that the universe is considerably larger than expected. The wagon creaks steadily onward. Every board seems to possess its own unique complaint. A wheel squeals. A leather strap groans. One barrel produces a mysterious knocking sound that nobody can explain. The driver has wisely chosen not to investigate. Sometimes ignorance is the most efficient maintenance strategy. The road ahead curves gently around a wooded hillside. Tall pines cast long shadows across the paving stones. The air feels cooler here. More pleasant. At least until the merchant beside you lowers his voice. Bandits. That single word immediately captures everyone's attention. Not because bandits are common. Because bandits are interesting. Human beings have always enjoyed stories about criminals, especially when the criminals are currently located somewhere else. The merchant points toward the forest. Travelers occasionally disappear along quieter roads, he explains. Most journeys end without incident. Most roads remain reasonably safe. Roman authorities work hard to suppress robbery. But an empire this large contains countless lonely places. And lonely places sometimes attract desperate people. You glance toward the trees. They appear perfectly harmless. Birds flutter among branches. Sunlight filters through leaves. Nothing moves. Still, you find yourself watching a little more carefully. The imagination enjoys filling empty forests with possibilities. Ancient travelers understand this well. Many carry knives. Some hire guards. Others travel in groups whenever possible. Not because danger waits behind every tree. Because being cautious is considerably easier than being robbed. Fortunately, the forest remains peaceful. No masked outlaws leap dramatically from the undergrowth. No thrilling chase occurs. History has a habit of being less theatrical than movies. Mostly, the road continues exactly as roads tend to continue. Slowly. Very slowly. The afternoon drifts onward. A hawk circles overhead. The wagon rattles. Passengers grow quieter. Heat and repetition begin performing their ancient magic. Even conversation becomes drowsy. Then dark clouds appear. At first, they seem harmless. A few grey shapes gathering beyond distant hills. Nobody pays much attention. The Roman world has experienced weather before. The weather, however, has plans. Within an hour, the sky transforms completely. Bright blue disappears. Wind sweeps across the countryside. Tree branches sway. The horses become restless. Travelers pull cloaks tighter around their shoulders. The driver looks upward with the expression of a man reviewing several unpleasant possibilities. Thunder rumbles far away. A deep, rolling sound. The kind that makes everyone quietly reconsider their confidence. Rain arrives suddenly. Not a gentle drizzle. Not a polite shower. A determined wall of water descending from the heavens with impressive enthusiasm. Within moments, the road changes color. Dust becomes mud. Cloaks become heavy. Visibility shrinks. The wagon continues moving because stopping offers few advantages. Everyone is wet either way. The horses lower their heads and push forward. Rain drums against wood. Water runs along the stone paving. The landscape dissolves into shifting grey curtains. You discover another truth about ancient travel. There is nowhere to hide. Modern travelers encounter storms from inside climate-controlled vehicles. You encounter storms directly. The weather receives unrestricted access to your entire existence. The experience is educational. Mostly about moisture. Hours seem to pass. Perhaps they actually do. Time behaves strangely during bad weather. Eventually the storm begins weakening. The rain softens. The clouds break apart. Sunlight returns in scattered golden beams. And suddenly the world looks transformed. Water sparkles on leaves. Fields gleam like polished glass. Tiny streams rush beside the road. Everything smells fresh. Clean. Alive. Even the passengers seem happier. There is something comforting about surviving an inconvenience together. A shared storm creates temporary companionship. The merchant offers dried figs from a small pouch. Another traveler shares nuts. Someone tells a story about a journey that supposedly involved 3 storms, 2 broken axles, and a goat that somehow ended up on a roof. The details seem questionable. Nobody cares. Good travel stories rarely improve through accuracy. The road climbs gradually toward higher ground. From the crest of a hill, you can finally see far into the distance. And there it is. A city. Small compared to Rome itself, but substantial enough to dominate the surrounding countryside. Stone walls catch the afternoon sunlight. Red-tiled roofs spread beyond them. A temple rises above the buildings. Thin columns of smoke drift into the sky. The sight immediately changes the mood inside the wagon. Destinations possess a special kind of power. You may still be hours away. You may still be tired. Your back may currently be negotiating surrender. But seeing the destination makes everything feel possible. The driver smiles for the first time all day. Passengers sit a little straighter. Even the horses seem encouraged. Civilization lies ahead. Food lies ahead. Beds lie ahead. Most importantly, standing perfectly still lies ahead. As the wagon descends toward the city, evening sunlight paints the countryside in shades of gold and amber. The road continues toward the gates. Merchants continue their conversations. Soldiers continue their patrols. Travelers continue their journeys. And beyond those distant walls, another chapter of Roman life is waiting to welcome you, along with entirely new opportunities for discomfort. The city looks magnificent from a distance. This is a common problem with cities throughout history. The farther away you are, the better they tend to smell. As the wagon rolls closer to the walls, details begin emerging from the golden haze of evening. The stone fortifications are impressive. Watchtowers rise above the gates. Colorful banners flutter in the breeze. Crowds flow steadily along the roads leading inward. Merchants. Farmers. Travelers. Officials. An entire river of humanity moving toward the same destination. For a moment, you feel the excitement building. A real Roman city. Bustling streets. Magnificent architecture. The beating heart of empire. Then the wind changes direction. The excitement becomes more complicated. Ancient cities possess many wonderful qualities. Fresh air is not always among them. The smell reaches you in layers. Wood smoke. Cooking food. Animals. Tanneries. Waste. Fish. More animals. An amount of animals that seems increasingly difficult to justify. Thousands of people live behind those walls. Thousands more pass through every week. The result is a city that attacks all 5 senses simultaneously. The line at the gate moves slowly. Guards inspect wagons and question travelers. Taxes must be collected. Goods recorded. Security maintained. Empires enjoy paperwork almost as much as they enjoy roads. The merchant beside you begins preparing documents. Even 2,000 years ago, bureaucracy remains undefeated. Eventually your turn arrives. The guards glance over the wagon. Ask a few questions. Inspect several crates. Then wave everyone through. Just like that, you enter the city. The noise hits first. Roads outside the walls feel busy. Inside the walls, busy acquires an entirely new meaning. People are everywhere. Street vendors shout prices. Blacksmiths hammer glowing iron. Donkeys protest their working conditions. Children race through alleys. Merchants argue energetically over goods. Someone nearby appears to be negotiating with remarkable passion about onions. The onions must be extremely important. Your wagon crawls through the crowded streets. Buildings lean close together overhead. Colorful awnings stretch across shop fronts. Small shrines sit at street corners. Citizens carry baskets, jars, bundles, tools, and enough miscellaneous objects to suggest every possible activity is happening at once. The city feels alive. Not organized. Not calm. Alive. The road narrows. Progress slows further. A wealthy official passes in a litter carried by servants. Nearby, laborers unload sacks of grain from a wagon. Across the street, a baker removes fresh loaves from an oven. The smell is extraordinary. You suddenly remember breakfast occurred approximately 3 centuries ago. At least that is how it feels. The baker's shop becomes difficult to ignore. Golden loaves line wooden shelves. Steam rises into the evening air. Customers crowd the entrance. Bread remains one of the most important foods in Roman society. Entire populations depend upon it. Political stability sometimes depends upon it. An empire can survive many problems. Hungry crowds are rarely one of them. The wagon continues deeper into the city. Soon larger buildings begin appearing. Bathhouses. Warehouses. Temples. Administrative offices. Stone columns rise above the streets. Marble statues watch silently from public squares. Fountains splash beneath fading sunlight. The merchant proudly points toward a distant complex of buildings. Public baths. One of Rome's greatest inventions. You immediately become interested. After several days of dust, sweat, rain, wagon travel, and questionable sleeping arrangements, the possibility of warm water feels almost mythical. The merchant laughs. Apparently every traveler reacts this way. For Romans, bathing is not merely about cleanliness. It is social life. Business. Politics. Relaxation. Entertainment. Entire afternoons can disappear inside a bath complex. The idea sounds increasingly brilliant. Your wagon finally stops in a busy commercial district. The merchant has reached his destination. Workers emerge immediately. Crates are unloaded. Barrels rolled away. Inventories checked. Everyone suddenly acquires urgent tasks. Except you. You simply stand still. Gloriously still. No rattling wheels. No bouncing benches. No dust clouds. No suspicious wagon noises. The ground beneath your feet feels remarkably stable. You never appreciated stationary earth this much before. As evening deepens, oil lamps begin appearing throughout the streets. Tiny points of light flicker in windows and doorways. Shadows lengthen between buildings. The city changes character. Daytime commerce slowly gives way to nighttime activity. Food vendors prepare evening meals. Musicians appear in public squares. Friends gather outside taverns. The air cools pleasantly. For the first time all day, the city feels less overwhelming. You follow the flow of people toward a public square. At its center stands a fountain. Water pours endlessly from carved stone figures. Travelers fill containers. Children splash carelessly. Citizens pause to talk after work. Life gathers around water the same way it always has. You sit along the fountain's edge. The stone feels cool. Comfortable. Above you, the sky deepens into shades of purple and blue. One by one, the first stars emerge. And for the first time since beginning your journey, you realize something. Tomorrow, you are not traveling anywhere. No wagons. No roads. No potholes. No dust. You have arrived. At least for now. Which means tomorrow you will finally experience one of the most fascinating parts of Roman urban life. The baths. And if fortune is smiling upon you, perhaps a meal that does not bounce violently before reaching your stomach. Section 6. You wake the next morning to a sound that is considerably more pleasant than wagon wheels. Flowing water. The idea sounds increasingly brilliant. Your wagon finally stops in a busy commercial district. The merchant has reached his destination. Workers emerge immediately. Crates are unloaded. Barrels rolled away. Inventories checked. Everyone suddenly acquires urgent tasks. Except you. You simply stand still. Gloriously still. No rattling wheels. No bouncing benches. No dust clouds. No suspicious wagon noises. The ground beneath your feet feels remarkably stable. You never appreciated stationary earth this much before. As evening deepens, oil lamps begin appearing throughout the streets. Tiny points of light flicker in windows and doorways. Shadows lengthen between buildings. The city changes character. Daytime commerce slowly gives way to nighttime activity. Food vendors prepare evening meals. Musicians appear in public squares. Friends gather outside taverns. The air cools pleasantly. For the first time all day, the city feels less overwhelming. You follow the flow of people toward a public square. At its center stands a fountain. Water pours endlessly from carved stone figures. Travelers fill containers. Children splash carelessly. Citizens pause to talk after work. Life gathers around water the same way it always has. You sit along the fountain's edge. The stone feels cool. Comfortable. Above you, the sky deepens into shades of purple and blue. One by one, the first stars emerge. And for the first time since beginning your journey, you realize something. Tomorrow, you are not traveling anywhere. No wagons. No roads. No potholes. No dust. You have arrived. At least for now. Which means tomorrow you will finally experience one of the most fascinating parts of Roman urban life. The baths. And if fortune is smiling upon you, perhaps a meal that does not bounce violently before reaching your stomach. Section 6. You wake the next morning to a sound that is considerably more pleasant than wagon wheels. Flowing water. Somewhere beyond your room, a fountain splashes steadily into a stone basin. For a few peaceful seconds, you forget where you are. Then reality returns. Rome. Well, not Rome, but a Roman city. A place large enough to possess public baths, crowded markets, and more people than seems strictly necessary. Sunlight slips through wooden shutters. The room is small but comfortable. Certainly more comfortable than a wagon. Then again, a pile of turnips would be more comfortable than a wagon. The competition is not intense. You dress and head downstairs. Somewhere beyond your room, a fountain splashes steadily into a stone basin. For a few peaceful seconds, you forget where you are. Then reality returns. Rome. Well, not Rome, but a Roman city. A place large enough to possess public baths, crowded markets, and more people than seems strictly necessary. Sunlight slips through wooden shutters. The room is small but comfortable. Certainly more comfortable than a wagon. Then again, a pile of turnips would be more comfortable than a wagon. The competition is not intense. You dress and head downstairs. The inn is already awake. Merchants discuss prices over breakfast. Travelers prepare for departure. Servants hurry between tables carrying bread and steaming bowls of porridge. The smell alone improves your mood dramatically. Outside, the city hums with morning energy. Shops are opening. Workers are arriving. Animals are being led through narrow streets. A fish seller loudly advertises his catch with the confidence of a man who believes volume can improve quality. The fish remain unconvinced. You follow directions toward the public baths. Finding them proves surprisingly easy. The building is enormous. Massive stone walls rise above neighboring structures. Columns support decorative entrances. Citizens stream in and out throughout the morning. For Romans, bathing is not an occasional luxury. It is part of everyday life. Rich people visit. Poor people visit. The Roman version of a community center, gymnasium, spa, cafe, and business lounge combined into one enormous institution. You move deeper inside. Marble floors gleam beneath the light. Decorative mosaics cover walls and ceilings. Statues stand beside pools. Water flows continuously through fountains and channels. The scale is astonishing. This is not simply a place to wash. It is a demonstration of engineering. Roman engineers love water. Almost suspiciously. They build aqueducts. They build fountains. They build sewers. They build baths. Given enough time, Roman engineers would probably attempt to install running water inside clouds. A local citizen explains the bathing routine. There is a process. A sequence. An order. Romans take this very seriously. First comes exercise. This seems unfair. You came here hoping to relax. Apparently relaxation must be earned through sweating. Citizens jog, wrestle, throw balls, and perform various athletic activities in open courtyards. Some appear enthusiastic. Others appear trapped by social expectations. Human nature changes very little. After exercise comes the warm rooms. Then hotter rooms. Then hotter rooms still. The famous heated chambers use an ingenious system called the hypercaust. Hot air circulates beneath floors and inside walls. Entire rooms remain comfortably warm. 2,000 years later, the technology still feels impressive. You enter one of the heated rooms. Immediately your muscles begin forgiving the wagon. Days of travel slowly melt away. The warmth reaches places inside your back that have been filing formal complaints since the first pothole. Nearby, merchants conduct business discussions. A pair of politicians exchange opinions. Several old men debate current events with absolute certainty despite possessing entirely different conclusions. The atmosphere is strangely familiar. Every civilization eventually invents places where people gather to confidently discuss things they cannot personally verify. The next room is hotter still. Steam drifts through the air. Voices echo softly from stone walls. For a moment, the outside world disappears. No roads. No schedules. No dust. Just warmth. Water. And relaxation. The Romans have many flaws. At this particular moment, you are willing to overlook several of them. Eventually you reach the bathing pools themselves. Citizens sit quietly in warm water. Others swim. Friends laugh together. Business deals continue. Somebody is probably negotiating a contract at this very moment while submerged up to the shoulders. The Romans possess remarkable efficiency. Even leisure becomes productive. Hours pass surprisingly quickly. When you finally leave the baths, the city feels different. Brighter somehow. Lighter. Perhaps because you no longer resemble a traveling dust collection experiment. The afternoon sun shines across busy streets. Market stalls overflow with goods from across the empire. Spices. Cloth. Pottery. Glassware. Jewelry. Olive oil. Wine. Everything moves. Everything trades. Everything connects. The roads brought these goods here. The ships brought others. The empire breathes through commerce. You wander among the crowds. Street musicians perform near fountains. Children chase one another through public squares. A storyteller gathers listeners beneath a shaded archway. Life unfolds in every direction. And as evening slowly approaches once more, you begin realizing something unexpected. The most remarkable part of the Roman world may not be the roads, or the baths, or the architecture. It may be the simple fact that millions of people, scattered across enormous distances, somehow participate in a shared civilization. A shared network. A shared rhythm. A shared world. Tomorrow, however, you intend to participate in something far simpler. A large meal. A comfortable chair. And absolutely no wagons whatsoever. At least, that is the plan. History, unfortunately, has a habit of developing alternative ideas. The plan lasts approximately 12 hours. Which, by historical standards, is actually quite respectable. You spend the evening exactly as intended. A satisfying meal. A comfortable chair. No wagons. No potholes. No livestock making unexpected decisions. For a brief, glorious period, life achieves something close to perfection. Then morning arrives. And with it comes a letter. Not your letter, of course. You do not technically exist in the Roman Empire. That would create paperwork complications. The letter belongs to the merchant who originally gave you a place on his wagon. You recognize him immediately as he bursts into the inn courtyard carrying a wax tablet and wearing the expression of a man whose schedule has suddenly become much more interesting. Which is rarely good news. Merchants thrive on information. And this information appears important. Very important. A shipment has arrived unexpectedly. Another shipment is delayed. Prices have changed in a neighboring city. Opportunities have appeared. Profits may be earned. The merchant explains all of this with tremendous excitement. You understand perhaps half of it. The important part is simple. He is leaving today. Immediately. Naturally, he asks whether you would like to come along. You consider refusing. You truly do. The baths were wonderful. The city is fascinating. Remaining stationary has many advantages. Unfortunately, curiosity remains one of humanity's most powerful weaknesses. Several hours later, you are once again sitting in a wagon. Your spine expresses disappointment. The city gates open before you. Morning sunlight spills across the road. The journey begins again. This route heads south toward the coast. The merchant hopes to meet a cargo vessel arriving from another province. If everything proceeds correctly, he stands to make an excellent profit. If everything proceeds incorrectly, he stands to acquire an excellent story. Ancient commerce often struggles to distinguish between the two. The countryside changes gradually as the day unfolds. Fields become greener. The air grows slightly warmer. More travelers appear on the roads. Many are merchants like your companion. Others are farmers bringing produce toward markets. A few are government officials carrying documents sealed with official markings. Every road seems alive with purpose. You begin noticing something interesting. Roman roads do not simply connect places. They create places. Small settlements appear at crossroads. Workshops cluster near major routes. Inns emerge wherever travelers require shelter. Entire communities owe their existence to movement. Without the roads, many of these places would never have grown at all. Around midday, the wagon reaches a busy intersection marked by a stone milestone and a small shrine. Traffic converges from several directions. The scene resembles an ancient version of a modern highway junction, except with considerably more donkeys. A fruit seller has positioned himself nearby. Travelers gather around his cart. Coins change hands. Conversations begin. News spreads. For an hour, the crossroads becomes a miniature world unto itself. One traveler speaks of floods in a distant valley. Another describes excellent harvests farther north. Someone claims to have seen an elephant during military service years ago. The story immediately becomes the most popular topic of discussion. Human beings have always enjoyed extraordinary animal stories, especially when elephants are involved. Eventually the road carries you onward once more. The afternoon passes peacefully. Too peacefully. You should probably be suspicious. History often uses peaceful afternoons as preparation. The merchant certainly seems uneasy. He studies the sky repeatedly. Not because of storms. Because of the sea. You cannot see it yet, but he knows it is near. Trade depends heavily upon ships. Ships depend heavily upon weather. Weather depends upon absolutely nobody. By late afternoon, the first signs begin appearing. A faint smell in the air. Sharp. Clean. Different from inland breezes. Seabirds wheel overhead. The landscape flattens. And then, at last, you see it. The sea. It stretches across the horizon like polished silver beneath the sun. For a moment, every passenger falls silent. Even after centuries of travel, certain sights retain their power. The sea is one of them. You have spent days watching roads disappear into the distance. Now an entirely different highway lies before you. A watery one. Far larger. Far less predictable. Far more interested in drowning people. The merchant points toward the coastline. There. A harbor. Tiny at first. Then gradually larger as the wagon approaches. Masts rise above buildings. Warehouses crowd the waterfront. Fishing boats bob near docks. Merchant vessels sit anchored beyond the harbor mouth. The entire town seems to face the water. Everything here depends upon it. Fish. Trade. Travel. Fortunes. Disasters. The sea provides all of them. As evening approaches, golden sunlight reflects from hundreds of rippling waves. Sailors move along the docks. Workers unload cargo. Cranes lift goods from ships. The harbor hums with energy. Different from a city. Different from a road. Yet connected to both. You suddenly understand something the Romans understood very well. Roads are impressive. But roads alone cannot hold an empire together. The sea does the rest. Tomorrow, if fortune allows, you may step aboard a merchant vessel. This realization produces two entirely opposite emotions. Excitement. And concern. Because while roads have spent the past week attempting to injure your back, ships possess much more ambitious goals. Section 8. The harbor smells exactly the way a harbor should. Salt. Fish. Tar. Seaweed. Wet rope. And a variety of mysterious odors that nobody seems interested in identifying too closely. You arrive shortly before sunset. The docks remain crowded despite the late hour. Workers carry cargo balanced on their shoulders. Sailors shout instructions from ships. Merchants inspect crates with expressions suggesting that every barrel contains either enormous profit or catastrophic disappointment. Possibly both. The sea glitters beyond the harbor walls. Calm. Peaceful. Almost suspiciously peaceful. Experience has taught humanity an important lesson. When nature appears extremely calm, it is often gathering energy for future mischief. The merchant leads you toward a vessel moored near the end of a wooden pier. Compared to modern ships, it looks surprisingly small. Compared to the wagons you have been riding, it looks alarmingly large. A broad sail hangs furled against the mast. Coils of rope rest neatly on deck. Amphorae filled with wine and olive oil stand secured near the cargo hold. Several sailors move about performing tasks that appear complicated enough to discourage questions. The merchant smiles. His cargo will travel by sea tomorrow morning. Which means, unfortunately, so will you. The sailors seem pleased by this development. You are less enthusiastic. The ocean possesses an unfortunate tendency to move. Constantly. In every direction. At the same time. The inn overlooking the harbor provides a final night on solid ground. You appreciate this fact deeply. Perhaps more deeply than necessary. From the window of your room, you can see ships rocking gently beneath moonlight. Lanterns flicker along the docks. Farther out, dark silhouettes drift upon silver water. The scene feels peaceful. Beautiful, even. It is remarkably easy to admire the sea when it remains outside your bedroom. Morning arrives beneath clear skies. The sailors approve. The merchant approves. The harbor master approves. Everyone seems delighted. This worries you. People become far too cheerful whenever somebody else is about to board a ship. Soon you find yourself walking along the pier. The wooden planks creak beneath your feet. Water laps quietly against pilings below. Gulls circle overhead, making noises that suggest ongoing personal grievances. The ship waits patiently. A sailor helps load the final cargo. Barrels. Crates. Bundles of cloth. Amphorae sealed with wax. Every available space is used efficiently. Ancient merchants understand a simple truth. Empty space earns no money. You climb aboard. The deck shifts slightly beneath your weight. Not much. Just enough. A subtle reminder that the ground has resigned from its responsibilities. The harbor slowly awakens around you. Other ships prepare for departure. Fishing boats head toward open water. Dockworkers begin another day of labor. The entire waterfront operates according to rhythms shaped by wind and tide. Then the crew raises the sail. It unfurls with a loud snap. Ropes tighten. Commands echo across the deck. The ship begins moving. At first, almost imperceptibly. Then steadily. The harbor recedes behind you. Buildings grow smaller. Voices fade. Land slowly pulls away. There is something strangely emotional about leaving shore. For most of human history, stepping onto a ship meant accepting uncertainty. Storms. Navigation errors. Pirates. Mechanical failures. Illness. The sea offered opportunities and dangers in equal measure. You stand near the rail watching the coastline drift past. White seabirds glide above the waves. Sunlight dances across the water. Everything feels remarkably pleasant. For approximately 20 minutes. Then your stomach begins negotiating new terms. The motion is gentle. The weather is perfect. The sea remains calm. None of this matters. Your inner ear has identified a problem. The ship moves. The horizon moves. The deck moves. Your confidence moves. The sailor beside you notices immediately. He has seen this expression before. Many times. Without speaking, he offers a sympathetic nod. It is the universal expression of someone thinking. Ah yes. Another one. Sea travel carries enormous advantages. Ships transport far more cargo than wagons. Travel can be faster. Routes connect distant provinces efficiently. Entire economies depend upon maritime trade. Unfortunately, your stomach has chosen not to participate in this analysis. By midday, you develop tremendous respect for every sailor who has ever functioned professionally while floating. The crew works constantly. Adjusting sails. Managing ropes. Checking cargo. Watching the horizon. Nobody appears bothered by the motion. Years at sea have transformed them into a different species. A species capable of eating lunch while the floor behaved unpredictably. The coastline remains visible throughout the afternoon. Rocky cliffs alternate with sandy beaches. Small villages appear and disappear. Watchtowers stand guard above sheltered coves. Every feature slides slowly past. The world looks different from the sea. Larger. More connected. Roads disappear behind hills. The coastline ignores such obstacles completely. You begin understanding why maritime trade became so important. Water creates pathways where land creates barriers. As the afternoon sun lowers toward the horizon, the sea turns golden. The waves shimmer like liquid metal. Even the sailors pause occasionally to admire the view. Beauty remains impressive, even when encountered daily. The captain studies the western sky. Satisfied, he gives a small nod. Good weather. Good wind. Good progress. The merchant appears delighted. Profits seem increasingly likely. You, meanwhile, are simply pleased that lunch has decided to remain where it belongs. The day ends peacefully. The sail glows amber in the setting sun. The coastline fades into evening shadows. And for the first time in your life, you prepare to spend an entire night surrounded not by roads, cities, or fields, but by open water stretching endlessly in every direction. Night at sea is different. Not better. Not worse. Just different. You discover this almost immediately. On land, even the darkest night usually contains something familiar. A road. A tree. A distant village. A barking dog conducting important business somewhere beyond sight. The sea offers none of these comforts. Once darkness settles fully across the water, the world seems to dissolve. The ship becomes a tiny floating island surrounded by endless blackness. The sensation is surprisingly humbling. And slightly alarming. The crew, of course, appears completely unconcerned. Sailors continue working by lantern light. Ropes creak softly overhead. The sail shifts with the wind. Water whispers against the hull. Everything feels calm. Ancient. Timeless. You sit near the stern and look upward. Then you forget about everything else. The stars. There are so many stars. Modern people rarely see a sky like this. No city lights compete with the heavens. No glowing signs interrupt the darkness. The entire sky blazes with countless points of light. Constellations stretch from horizon to horizon. A pale river of stars crosses the heavens overhead. The sailors know many of them by name. For centuries, mariners have used the night sky as a guide. Long before compasses become common, long before modern navigation, the stars help travelers find their way across open water. A gray-haired sailor points upward. Patiently, he explains which stars indicate direction. Which constellations appear during different seasons. Which celestial patterns experienced sailors trust most. The knowledge feels almost magical. Yet it is practical. Necessary. The sea rewards preparation and punishes mistakes. A navigator who misunderstands the sky may discover entirely new forms of regret. The evening remains peaceful. A simple meal appears. Bread. Dried fish. Olives. A little watered wine. Nothing extravagant. But after a day aboard ship, nobody complains. Even sailors understand the value of uncomplicated food, especially when waves are involved. Nearby, several crew members tell stories. Naturally, every sailor claims to have survived storms more dramatic than anyone else's. This appears to be an ancient maritime tradition. One describes waves taller than buildings. Another speaks of lightning striking the sea. A third insists he once encountered a fish so enormous it could swallow a wagon. The details become increasingly ambitious. The fish continues growing larger each time the story is retold. By the end of the evening, it may own property. The ship sails onward beneath moonlight. Hours pass quietly. The sea remains calm. The wind remains favorable. Everything proceeds exactly according to plan. Which, as you are beginning to suspect, is often a warning. Shortly after midnight, the weather begins changing. Not dramatically. Not at first. A few clouds gather. The wind shifts direction slightly. The captain notices immediately. Experienced sailors observe changes long before ordinary passengers. The same way shepherds understand sheep. Or blacksmiths understand metal. Or innkeepers understand which guest is about to cause trouble. The captain studies the horizon. His expression becomes thoughtful. That is never encouraging. Still, nobody seems particularly worried. The crew adjusts a few ropes. Checks a few lines. Continues working. Life aboard ship depends heavily upon constant attention. Even during calm weather. Perhaps especially during calm weather. You eventually settle beneath a wool blanket near the stern. Sleep arrives slowly. The deck moves gently beneath you. The sea breathes beneath the hull. Above, clouds drift across the stars. The entire world seems suspended between sky and water. For a while, you simply listen. The creaking timbers. The fluttering sail. The rhythmic sound of waves. There is something deeply soothing about it. You understand why sailors grow attached to the sea despite its dangers. The ocean possesses a strange personality. Beautiful. Powerful. Unpredictable. A terrible roommate but an excellent storyteller. Sometime before dawn, a louder sound wakes you. A sharp crack. Not catastrophic, but noticeable. Several sailors are already moving. Lanterns swing through the darkness. Voices remain calm. That is encouraging. Calm sailors are generally preferable to panicked sailors. A rope has snapped. Nothing serious. At least not yet. The crew quickly replaces it. Work continues. The ship sails onward. Still, the incident serves as a reminder. Everything aboard depends upon equipment. Wood. Canvas. Rope. Skill. A modern vessel contains layers of backup systems. Ancient ships depend much more directly upon human competence. Fortunately, competence appears abundant. The sailors handle the problem efficiently. Within minutes, the ship returns to its previous rhythm. Eventually dawn begins spreading across the eastern horizon. At first, only a faint silver glow. Then pale blue. Then streaks of gold. One by one, the stars disappear. The sea changes color. Dark black becomes deep blue. Then turquoise. Then brilliant silver beneath the rising sun. Passengers emerge from blankets. The crew relaxes slightly. Another night completed. Another day beginning. Ahead, far beyond the morning haze, a sailor points toward the horizon. Land. Distant. Barely visible. But unmistakable. A new coast. A new harbor. A new destination. The merchant immediately becomes excited. Business opportunities are apparently visible from remarkable distances. You cannot see warehouses. Or markets. Or customers. The merchant somehow can. The ship turns slightly toward the distant shore. The wind remains favorable. The sea remains calm. And as sunlight spreads across the waves, you realize that your journey through the Roman world is about to enter yet another chapter. One involving foreign ports, unfamiliar faces, and almost certainly a fresh collection of historical inconveniences. By mid-morning, the distant coastline has transformed from a faint line on the horizon into a real place. A very busy place. The harbor ahead is larger than the last one. Much larger. Stone breakwaters extend into the sea like giant arms welcoming ships toward safety. Watchtowers stand guard above the entrance. Warehouses crowd the waterfront. Hundreds of vessels fill the harbor. Fishing boats. Merchant ships. Government vessels. Small coastal craft. Large cargo ships. The entire scene seems to move at once. Sails rise. Sails fall. Cranes swing cargo overhead. Dock workers shout instructions. Seagulls contribute absolutely nothing while remaining extremely vocal. The merchant beside you grows visibly excited. This is his world. Every mast represents opportunity. Every warehouse contains possibility. Every arriving ship carries information. And information, as you have learned, is nearly as valuable as cargo. The vessel glides between the harbor walls. Almost immediately, the noise reaches you. Cities have their own sounds. Harbors have entirely different ones. Ropes groan. Wood creaks. Hammers strike metal. Waves slap against stone. Voices echo from every direction. It sounds less like a harbor and more like a giant machine assembled from people. The ship finally reaches its berth. Lines are secured. Gangplanks lowered. Cargo inspections begin. The sailors immediately get to work. There is no dramatic celebration. No triumphant speech. No ceremonial welcome. Just labor. Endless labor. The Roman economy runs on countless ordinary people doing difficult jobs every day. A truth that sounds less glamorous than history books often suggest. But considerably more accurate. You step onto solid ground. The experience is unexpectedly emotional. The earth remains perfectly still. Perfectly still. For several glorious seconds, you simply stand there appreciating the concept. Nearby, a sailor laughs. Apparently every passenger behaves this way after a voyage. Some traditions require no explanation. The harbor district is a world unto itself. Warehouses line the waterfront. Massive doors stand open to reveal mountains of goods. Amphorae stacked higher than a person. Bundles of cloth. Crates of glassware. Sacks of grain. Barrels of wine. Merchants move through the crowds carrying wax tablets and conducting calculations. The amount of commerce is astonishing. Entire regions depend upon these exchanges. A drought in one province. A bumper harvest in another. A delayed shipment. A favorable wind. Events hundreds of miles away influence prices here. The empire feels interconnected in a way that surprises you. Not modern, but undeniably connected. The merchant leads you toward the marketplace. The route takes you through narrow streets crowded with traders from across the Mediterranean. Languages mingle together. Accents shift from street to street. Clothing styles vary dramatically. Some travelers wear bright Eastern fabrics. Others arrive from distant Western provinces. The city feels like a meeting point for half the known world. At the center of the marketplace, activity reaches astonishing levels. Vendors call out prices. Customers bargain energetically. Animals wander through the chaos with impressive confidence. Children weave through crowds carrying baskets. A philosopher attempts to gather listeners around a public lecture. The audience appears limited. Competing against food vendors is difficult. Food usually wins. The aromas drifting through the market are extraordinary. Fresh bread. roasted fish, honey cakes, herbs, spices, olive oil. For a moment, your attention shifts entirely away from history and toward lunch. This may be the most authentic historical experience of all. Across civilizations and centuries, hungry people remain remarkably consistent. You purchase a simple meal from a street vendor. Bread still warm from the oven. A little cheese. A handful of olives. Nothing complicated. Nothing expensive. Yet sitting beside a fountain while watching the market bustle around you, it feels perfect. History often focuses on emperors, generals, and great events. But most people spend most of their lives doing simpler things. Working. Traveling. Eating. Talking. Resting. Trying to avoid unnecessary trouble. The same things people do today. The realization makes the ancient world feel unexpectedly familiar. As afternoon approaches, the merchant finally concludes his business. The results appear favorable. Very favorable. His mood suggests profits have been achieved. Possibly substantial profits. The details remain complicated. The smile is easy to understand. Trade has gone well. And successful merchants become generous merchants. To celebrate, he invites several companions, including you, to an evening meal. Not a tavern meal. Not roadside bread and cheese. Something better. Much better. The invitation immediately becomes the most important event of the day. After weeks of roads, inns, wagons, storms, ships, and travel food, the prospect of a proper feast feels almost mythical. As the sun begins descending toward the sea, preparations for the evening begin. Lanterns appear in doorways. Shadows stretch across the harbor. Ships rock gently against their moorings. The marketplace gradually softens from frantic commerce into relaxed conversation. Another day in the Roman world draws toward its close. And tonight, for the first time since your journey began, there will be no departure scheduled for dawn. No wagon waiting outside. No sail needing favorable winds. No road stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Just food. Conversation. And perhaps, if fortune remains kind, a chair comfortable enough to convince you that civilization was worth building in the first place. The feast begins at sunset. Which sounds considerably grander than it actually is. Nobody arrives wearing golden crowns. No trumpets announce your entrance. No servants scatter flower petals before your feet. History contains far fewer flower petals than movies would have you believe. Still, compared to recent weeks, the evening feels remarkably luxurious. The merchant's host owns a respectable house overlooking part of the harbor. Not a palace. Not a mansion. Simply the comfortable home of someone who has spent many years successfully buying things in one place and selling them somewhere else. A skill that repeatedly proves profitable throughout human history. You enter through a courtyard filled with potted herbs and a small fountain. The sound of flowing water follows you everywhere in Roman cities. At this point, you suspect Romans would install fountains inside other fountains if given sufficient engineering resources. Oil lamps cast warm light across painted walls. Guests arrive gradually. Merchants. Ship captains. Local officials. Several people whose occupations remain difficult to determine but who seem extremely confident regardless. Food appears almost immediately. This is encouraging. Many important historical events involve speeches. Most people would probably prefer dinner. The first dishes are simple. Bread. Olives. Cheese. Fresh fruit. Bowls of nuts. Nothing elaborate. Yet after months of travel, freshness itself feels luxurious. The figs are especially memorable. Not because they are extraordinary. Because they are not covered in road dust. Your standards have changed considerably. Conversation flows as easily as the wine. Trade dominates many discussions. One merchant describes grain shipments from distant provinces. Another complains about taxes. A ship captain complains about weather. Someone else complains about ship captains. Civilization continues functioning through the miracle of people complaining professionally about one another. As darkness deepens outside, larger dishes arrive. Roasted fish fresh from the harbor. Vegetables seasoned with herbs. Lentils. Eggs. Various sauces whose ingredients remain somewhat mysterious. Roman cuisine enjoys experimentation. Occasionally perhaps too much experimentation. Fortunately tonight's cook appears trustworthy. The meal stretches pleasantly onward. Nobody rushes. Nobody checks the time. Nobody receives urgent notifications. The evening unfolds at human speed. A rare luxury in any century. One guest begins telling stories about distant provinces. Egypt. Gaul. Syria. Places that sound unimaginably far away. Yet somehow all connected through the same network of roads and sea routes you have been exploring. Listening to these stories, you begin appreciating the true scale of the Roman world. Most people never travel far from home. Yet goods, ideas, and information travel constantly. A merchant in one city may profit from events occurring hundreds of miles away. A sailor may visit more places in a decade than many citizens see in a lifetime. The empire feels vast. But it also feels connected. That connection may be its greatest achievement. Later in the evening, musicians arrive. Nothing grand. Just a few performers carrying simple instruments. The music drifts through the courtyard while lanterns flicker against the walls. Conversations soften. Laughter rises occasionally from one table or another. Beyond the house, harbor lights sparkle beside the dark sea. For a moment, everything feels peaceful. Stable. Permanent. Of course, history knows better. Empires rise. Empires fall. Cities flourish. Cities decline. Even the greatest achievements eventually change. But sitting here tonight, surrounded by warm food, friendly voices, and the distant sound of waves, those future centuries feel impossibly far away. The guests begin departing one by one. Lanterns burn lower. The fountain continues its quiet song. The merchant seems pleased with both the meal and his successful business. A dangerous combination. Successful merchants often develop new ideas. And new ideas usually involve travel. Sure enough, before the evening ends, he mentions another opportunity. A caravan leaving inland. Valuable goods. Promising markets. Potential profits. You immediately recognize the warning signs. The roads are calling again. The merchant notices your expression and laughs. Do not worry, he says. Departure is still several days away. Several days. The words sound magnificent. Several entire days with no wagon. No storms. No seasickness. No collapsing wheels. You intend to enjoy every moment. Eventually you return to your room overlooking the harbor. The city has fallen quiet. Moonlight dances across the water. Ships rest peacefully at their moorings. Far out at sea, a few distant lanterns shimmer like stars floating upon the waves. You sit beside the window for a while. Thinking. Not about emperors. Not about wars. Not about famous historical events. Instead, you think about ordinary people. The merchants. The sailors. The innkeepers. The farmers. The travelers. Millions of lives woven together by roads and ships and markets. History often remembers the powerful. But civilizations are built mostly by everyone else. The thought follows you as you finally settle into bed. Tomorrow will be slower. No great journey. No dramatic adventure. Just a day spent exploring the city itself. And sometimes, after weeks of movement, standing still can feel like the greatest luxury of all. For the first time in what feels like forever, you wake up with absolutely nowhere to be. No wagon driver is shouting for passengers. No sailor is tightening ropes. No merchant is urgently calculating profits before sunrise. The world can proceed without your immediate participation. It is a wonderful feeling. Sunlight spills across the harbor outside your window. Fishing boats are already returning with the morning catch. Market stalls are opening. Somewhere below, a baker is producing smells powerful enough to influence major life decisions. You decide today will be devoted entirely to exploration. Not travel. Exploration. The distinction feels important. Travel involves schedules. Exploration involves curiosity. And considerably more bread. After breakfast, you wander into the city with no destination in mind. This would horrify many Roman officials. Empires prefer organization. You prefer seeing what happens. The streets are quieter than the harbor district. Narrow alleys twist between apartment buildings several stories high. Laundry hangs from balconies overhead. Neighbors talk through open windows. Children play games in shaded courtyards. The city feels different away from the marketplaces. More personal. Less concerned with commerce. More concerned with everyday life. A woman carries water from a public fountain. A cobbler repairs worn sandals outside his workshop. An elderly man feeds crumbs to a collection of birds that seem increasingly confident in their ownership of the neighborhood. Nobody appears particularly interested in history. Which is understandable. They are busy living it. One street leads to another. Then another. Soon you arrive at a small public square. Several philosophers are engaged in discussion beneath a covered portico. Or possibly argument. The distinction remains unclear. Ancient philosophy often sounds remarkably similar to two intelligent people refusing to admit the other might have a point. A small crowd listens. Occasionally someone nods thoughtfully. Occasionally someone rolls their eyes. Human reactions to intellectual debate have remained wonderfully consistent. You continue onward. The city reveals itself gradually. A potter shaping clay outside his workshop. A tailor measuring cloth for a customer. Stonemasons repairing a damaged wall. Workers carrying baskets of produce toward the market. Everywhere, people are building, repairing, buying, selling, cooking, cleaning, and negotiating. Civilization, you realize, is mostly maintenance. History books celebrate construction. Daily life celebrates keeping things from falling apart. Near midday, you discover one of the city's most impressive structures. The aqueduct. Its arches stretch across the landscape beyond the city walls, carrying water from distant hills. The sight is magnificent. Not dramatic in the way armies or battles are dramatic. More impressive than dramatic. Water flows quietly through stone channels. No fanfare. No applause. Yet entire neighborhoods depend upon it. Fountains depend upon it. Baths depend upon it. Businesses depend upon it. Thousands of people wake each day expecting water because someone built this structure generations ago. The Romans excel at creating systems. Roads. Aqueducts. Harbors. Markets. Individually impressive. Together transformative. You spend nearly an hour simply watching water move through the channels. This is surprisingly relaxing. Possibly you have become more Roman than intended. The afternoon grows warm. Seeking shade, you enter a public garden overlooking part of the harbor. Cypress trees sway gently in the breeze. Birds move among flowering shrubs. Stone benches offer welcome rest. Several citizens sit reading scrolls. Others talk quietly. A few simply enjoy the view. Not every moment of ancient life involves dramatic events. Most moments do not. Most moments look exactly like this. People finding comfortable places to sit. A timeless human achievement. As the sun begins lowering toward the west, you make your way back through the city. The evening crowds are returning. Workers finishing their day. Merchants closing shops. Families gathering for meals. The familiar rhythm of urban life repeats itself once more. Tomorrow, the roads may return. The merchant may discover another opportunity. A caravan may depart for some distant province. Adventure may once again become unavoidable. But not today. Today belongs to ordinary life. And perhaps that is the greatest surprise of your journey. The Roman world is not extraordinary because of its emperors or monuments. It is extraordinary because millions of ordinary people somehow make it function every day. As twilight settles over the harbor, lamps begin appearing in windows across the city. One light. Then another. Then hundreds more. Tiny points of warmth scattered across the gathering darkness. From your window, they look almost like stars. Not the grand stars that guided sailors across the sea. Smaller stars. Human stars. Each one marking a home. A family. A meal. A conversation. A life. And as you watch them flicker to life beneath the evening sky, you begin to understand that every road, every ship, every market, and every aqueduct ultimately exists for a simple reason. To connect people. The empire may be vast. But tonight, beneath the glow of countless lamps, it feels surprisingly small. You spend 3 entire days in the city. 3 glorious, wagon-free days. No bouncing. No rattling. No unexpected encounters with weather. No horses making questionable decisions on your behalf. It is, by every reasonable measure, an outstanding success. Which is precisely why it cannot last. On the morning of the 4th day, you find the merchant studying a map. This is never a promising sign. Maps are where journeys begin. And journeys, as experience has repeatedly demonstrated, tend to involve discomfort. The merchant looks up and smiles. You immediately become suspicious. A caravan is departing inland tomorrow. Several wagons. Numerous guards. Good roads. Reliable company. Excellent opportunities. He lists these advantages one after another. You notice he never mentions comfort. History rarely does. The destination lies far from the coast, beyond rolling farmland and low mountain passes. Several prosperous towns sit along the route. Trade remains strong. Markets are active. The merchant intends to purchase textiles. Possibly livestock. Potentially pottery. Definitely profit. Profit appears to be the only thing capable of traveling faster than Roman news. And so, despite knowing exactly where this story is heading, you agree. Curiosity wins again. It always does. The next morning, the caravan gathers outside the city gates. The scene is considerably larger than previous journeys. Half a dozen wagons stand ready. Pack animals carry supplies. Guards inspect weapons. Drivers check wheels. Merchants review inventories with the seriousness of generals preparing for battle. Which, economically speaking, they almost are. Trade is simply warfare conducted through accounting. The city slowly disappears behind you. The harbor fades from view. The smell of salt vanishes. Soon the road stretches ahead once more. Ancient, familiar, unavoidable. The countryside unfolds beneath a brilliant spring sky. Fields of grain ripple in the breeze. Wildflowers dot the hillsides. Farmhouses sit among orchards heavy with fruit. The world feels peaceful. Productive. Prosperous. At least from a distance. One of the guards rides alongside your wagon. He has spent years escorting caravans. Naturally, this means he possesses stories. Hundreds of stories. Most involve terrible weather. Many involve stubborn animals. Several involve merchants making spectacularly bad decisions. The merchants nearby pretend not to hear. The guard seems delighted by this. The road climbs steadily through gentle hills. From higher ground, you can see the countryside stretching for miles. Tiny villages appear like clusters of toys. Smoke rises from distant chimneys. Roads thread across the landscape. You suddenly realize how many people you have encountered during this journey. Farmers, sailors, innkeepers, bakers, blacksmiths, merchants, soldiers, dock workers, potters. Thousands of lives crossing paths. History often focuses upward, but civilization is built outward. The thought stays with you as the caravan continues. By afternoon, the road enters a broad valley. A river winds through the center. Stone bridges span the water. Fields extend toward the horizon. The entire landscape seems carefully organized. Managed. Cultivated. This is not wilderness. This is an empire. Even distant regions bear the marks of roads, farms, and settlements. Human effort is visible everywhere. The caravan stops beside the river for lunch. Animals drink eagerly. Travelers stretch their legs. Bread appears. Cheese appears. Olives appear. At this point, you suspect olives may be legally required throughout the Roman world. A young merchant joins your group. He is traveling for the first time. His excitement is impossible to miss. Everything fascinates him. Every milestone. Every bridge. Every passing traveler. You recognize the feeling immediately. The world seems larger when you first begin exploring it. Eventually, experience replaces wonder. Or so people claim. Personally, you are not convinced. The afternoon passes beneath clear skies. The caravan makes excellent progress. Perhaps too excellent. You have noticed a pattern. Whenever a journey becomes comfortable, history begins sharpening something unpleasant behind the scenes. Sure enough, the weather starts changing. Clouds gather above the mountains ahead. Nothing dramatic yet. Just enough to attract attention. The guards notice. The drivers notice. Even the animals seem aware. Nature possesses a remarkable ability to announce itself before speaking. As evening approaches, the caravan reaches a roadside inn positioned beside an old stone bridge. The building is crowded. Travelers fill nearly every room. Merchants from distant provinces share tables. Soldiers rest near the hearth. A storyteller entertains listeners with tales that become increasingly heroic after each cup of wine. The atmosphere feels warm. Safe. Comfortable. Outside, however, thunder murmurs among the hills. A low rolling sound. Distant. Patient. The storm is still far away. But it is coming. You stand for a moment beneath the inn's doorway, watching dark clouds gather above the mountains. Lightning flickers briefly within them. A silent flash far beyond the horizon. The road ahead disappears into shadow. Tomorrow's journey will continue through those hills. Through the passes. Through whatever weather is currently assembling there. The caravan will move forward. The merchants will chase opportunity. The guards will watch the roads. The drivers will complain about mud. And you will once again discover that ancient travel possesses an endless talent for turning simple plans into memorable stories. For now, though, the fire crackles warmly behind you. Rain has not yet arrived. Dinner is being served. And for one peaceful evening, the storm remains somebody else's problem. Section 14. By dawn, the storm has become everyone's problem. You wake before sunrise to the sound of rain hammering against the roof. Not gentle rain. Not pleasant rain. Determined rain. The sort of rain that appears to have personal grievances. The inn groans softly beneath the weather. Wind rattles shutters. Water rushes through gutters outside. Somewhere in the stable, a horse expresses strong opinions regarding the situation. You sympathize completely. The common room is already awake. Travelers gather around the hearth, staring toward the windows with expressions that suggest they are hoping the weather might reconsider. The weather remains committed. Breakfast arrives. Bread. Cheese. A little porridge. The universal language of difficult mornings. Outside, the caravan prepares for departure. Nobody looks happy. Even the merchants seem less enthusiastic than usual. A wagon wheel sinks into mud almost immediately. Several drivers exchange looks that require no translation. Today will be complicated. Still, the journey begins. Roads do not care whether you feel motivated. The caravan rolls across the old stone bridge and heads toward the mountains. Rain falls steadily. Water flows along the roadside ditches. The landscape appears blurred behind grey curtains. Fields become marshy. Paths become slippery. Every surface develops opinions about gravity. Progress slows considerably. The wagons struggle on inclines. The animals work harder. Conversations become shorter. Nobody enjoys shouting through rain for extended periods. The road gradually climbs into the foothills. Trees crowd closer. The valley behind disappears beneath mist. Ahead, the mountains loom like enormous shadows. You understand now why travelers respect weather so deeply. A storm transforms everything. Distances feel longer. Roads feel worse. Comfort becomes rare. The guard riding nearby pulls his cloak tighter. Even he seems impressed by the conditions. That is not reassuring. By midday, the caravan reaches the first mountain pass. The scenery is spectacular. Unfortunately, everyone is too wet to appreciate it properly. Steep slopes rise on both sides. Waterfalls tumble down rocky cliffs. Clouds drift through the valleys below. The entire world seems wrapped in silver mist. Under different circumstances, it would be beautiful. Under current circumstances, it is mostly damp. The road narrows. Wagons move single file. Drivers concentrate carefully. One mistake here could create significant problems. Ancient roads are impressive. Ancient guardrails are considerably less common. The caravan proceeds cautiously. Rain continues. Wind whistles through the rocks. Somewhere overhead, a hawk circles effortlessly through the storm. You find this mildly insulting. Around mid-afternoon, the inevitable happens. A wagon becomes stuck. Not dramatically. Not catastrophically. Simply stuck. One wheel sinks into deep mud beside the road. The wagon refuses further cooperation. Immediately, the entire caravan stops. Drivers inspect the problem. Guards assist. Merchants offer advice. The advice proves abundant. Useful advice proves slightly rarer. Several people gather branches and stones. Others unload part of the cargo. The process takes nearly an hour. Everyone becomes muddy. Nobody becomes cleaner. Eventually, through persistence and collective stubbornness, the wagon is freed. A small cheer rises from the group. Victories become surprisingly meaningful when they involve mud. The journey resumes. The storm finally begins weakening late in the afternoon. The rain softens. Clouds thin. A few patches of blue sky appear overhead. The transformation feels miraculous. Sunlight breaks through the mist in golden shafts. The mountains glow. Water sparkles on every surface. The entire landscape seems reborn. Travelers emerge from beneath soaked cloaks. Conversations return. Even the animals appear encouraged. You crest a ridge and stop for a moment. The view steals everyone's attention. Beyond the mountains lies a vast plateau stretching toward the horizon. Rolling grasslands. Scattered villages. Winding rivers. Roads threading through the distance like ribbons. The storm clouds drift away behind you. Sunlight floods the land ahead. It feels as though you've crossed into a different world. The guard beside you smiles. First time through the pass? You nod. He laughs. Everyone remembers their first crossing. You understand why. Some journeys are memorable because they are comfortable. Others are memorable because they are not. History tends to preserve the second category. As evening approaches, the caravan descends from the mountains. The roads improve. The weather clears completely. Smoke rises from a settlement in the distance. Tonight's destination. A welcome sight. The inn there is smaller than the last one. Simpler. But nobody cares. It has walls. A roof. And, most importantly, dryness. Travelers arrive exhausted but satisfied. The storm is behind them. The mountains are crossed. The road continues onward. Inside the inn, a fire burns brightly. Wet cloaks hang near the hearth. Boots dry slowly. The smell of stew fills the room. Civilization has many achievements. At this moment, hot stew ranks surprisingly high among them. Outside, the last light fades from the western sky. Stars begin appearing above the dark silhouette of the mountains. Tomorrow the caravan will enter new towns. Meet new people. Discover new opportunities. And almost certainly encounter new inconveniences. But tonight, surrounded by warmth and food and fellow travelers, those future difficulties seem wonderfully distant. For now, the storm is over. And sometimes that is adventure enough. The morning after the storm feels strangely new. Perhaps it is the clear sky. Perhaps it is the mountain air. Or perhaps everyone is simply grateful that water is no longer falling directly from the heavens. Whatever the reason, the caravan leaves the inn in noticeably better spirits. The roads ahead stretch across a broad plateau bathed in golden sunlight. Grasslands ripple in the breeze. Wildflowers brighten the roadside. Streams sparkle beneath small stone bridges. After days of storms, ships, cities, and mountains, the landscape feels almost peaceful enough to trust. Almost. The road here is older than anyone in the caravan can remember. Generations of travelers have worn smooth tracks into the earth. Merchants. Soldiers. Pilgrims. Messengers. Countless feet. Countless wheels. Countless stories. You find yourself wondering how many people have stood exactly where you are standing now. History often feels distant. Until you realize you're walking the same road someone walked 2,000 years ago. Then it becomes surprisingly personal. The caravan passes several small villages during the morning. Children wave from doorways. Farmers pause in their fields to watch the wagons pass. Dogs announce the arrival of strangers with professional dedication. Every settlement seems connected to the road. The road brings news. Trade. Visitors. Possibilities. Without it, these villages would feel far more isolated. With it, they remain part of something larger. Near midday, the caravan reaches a market town. The place is alive with activity. Stalls fill the central square. Farmers sell vegetables and grain. Potters display rows of freshly fired bowls. Blacksmiths offer tools and horseshoes. Livestock occupy one corner of the market while expressing varying opinions about the arrangement. The noise is extraordinary. You quickly discover that every merchant believes his goods deserve immediate attention. Preferably louder attention than everyone else's. A trader selling cloth competes with a baker. The baker competes with a fish seller. The fish seller competes with a man attempting to sell chickens. The chickens contribute their own perspective. Civilization, once again, appears to be powered largely by organized chaos. The caravan stops for several hours. Business must be conducted. Deals negotiated. Inventories compared. Prices argued over. The merchants become intensely focused. You wander through the market. Everywhere you look, people are exchanging things. Not just goods. Information. Rumors. News. Stories. A traveler from a distant province describes conditions hundreds of miles away. A farmer discusses harvest predictions. A soldier mentions troop movements along a frontier. Nobody owns the complete picture. Yet somehow, through thousands of conversations like these, information spreads across the empire. You stop near a storyteller entertaining a small crowd. His tale involves a lost treasure, a forgotten temple, and a goat. The goat appears unexpectedly central to the plot. This receives enthusiastic approval from the audience. History remembers emperors. People remember stories about goats. By late afternoon, the caravan prepares to move again. The merchants seem pleased. Business has gone well. Coins have changed hands. Agreements have been reached. Future profits have been imagined. Everything appears successful. Which naturally means trouble is approaching. The first sign comes from one of the scouts. He returns at a brisk pace. Not alarmed. Not panicked. Just serious. A bridge ahead has been damaged. Not destroyed. Damaged. Recent flooding weakened part of the structure. The crossing remains possible. But it will require caution. Immediately, plans change. Routes are discussed. Alternatives considered. Time estimated. This is ancient travel in its purest form. No journey proceeds exactly as intended. Roads change. Weather changes. Circumstances change. The successful traveler adapts. The caravan presses onward. As evening approaches, the damaged bridge finally comes into view. It spans a fast-moving river cutting through the grasslands. Most of the structure remains intact. One section does not. Several stones have shifted. Part of the roadway has partially collapsed. Nothing impossible. Just concerning. Drivers inspect it carefully. The guards cross first. Then the empty wagons. Then the loaded ones. Slowly. Carefully. One at a time. The entire process takes hours. Everyone watches. Nobody breathes normally. The bridge creaks. The river rushes below. The wagons inch forward. At last, the final wagon reaches the far side. A cheer rises from the caravan. Not because the crossing was dramatic. Because it is finished. Human beings have always loved completing difficult tasks. Especially tasks involving the possibility of falling into rivers. The sun is setting now. The western sky burns orange and gold. The caravan continues for another mile before stopping for the night beside a small roadside station used by travelers and official couriers. The buildings are simple. Functional. Exactly what tired people need. As darkness settles across the plateau, campfires begin appearing. Meals are prepared. Animals are fed. Stories are exchanged. Above, the stars emerge one by one. Clear. Bright. Endless. You sit beside the fire and watch sparks drift upward into the night. Tomorrow, the road continues. Another town. Another market. Another chapter of the journey. But tonight, there is only the crackle of firewood, the murmur of distant conversations, and the comforting realization that for one more day, the road has allowed everyone to pass. In the ancient world, that is never something to take for granted. The roadside station wakes before the sun. You know this because a mule decides to announce the fact to everyone within hearing distance. And perhaps several people beyond hearing distance. The sound tears through the pre-dawn darkness with astonishing confidence. Nearby horses immediately begin responding. Dogs contribute. A rooster joins the discussion. Within minutes, the entire animal kingdom appears committed to ending sleep as a concept. You open your eyes and stare at the ceiling. The Roman Empire, you decide, could have achieved many things. Inventing alarm clocks was not necessary. Outside, the sky is beginning to pale. Campfires glow softly in the darkness. Travelers emerge from blankets and cloaks. Some stretch. Some yawn. Some simply sit quietly, questioning their life choices. The caravan prepares for another day. The routine has become familiar now. Animals watered. Harnesses checked. Loads inspected. Breakfast consumed. Road resumed. Ancient travel is surprisingly repetitive. Which, in many ways, is exactly why it works. The sun rises as the wagons begin moving. Golden light spreads across the grasslands. Morning mist lingers in low valleys. Birds dart above the fields. For a while, the journey feels almost effortless. The damaged bridge is behind you. The storm is behind you. Even the mountains are now distant shapes on the horizon. Ahead lies open country. And somewhere beyond that, the merchant's destination. Around mid-morning, the caravan encounters a group of imperial couriers. Everyone notices immediately. They move quickly. Purposefully. Mounted on fresh horses. Travel-stained but efficient. Official business possesses a recognizable appearance. The lead courier carries a leather dispatch case sealed with government markings. The guards step aside respectfully. The couriers do not stop. They barely slow down. Within moments, they have disappeared down the road. You watch them go. The guard riding nearby smiles. The imperial post, he explains. One of the empire's greatest achievements. Official messengers can travel remarkable distances using a network of stations where fresh horses await. Information moves faster than ordinary travelers ever could. Not instantly. Nothing in the ancient world is instant. But impressively fast. An emperor may issue orders hundreds of miles away. Weeks later, those orders arrive. Roads make it possible. Without roads, empires shrink. Not physically. Practically. The thought stays with you as the caravan continues. Every milestone. Every bridge. Every station. Every road crew maintaining these routes. Together they hold an enormous world together. Near noon, the landscape begins changing again. The broad grasslands gradually give way to cultivated countryside. More farms appear. More villages. More evidence of human activity. Fields stretch in neat patterns across rolling hills. Vineyards climb sunny slopes. Olive groves dot the landscape. The region looks prosperous. The merchants approve. Prosperous regions tend to purchase things. Merchants are enthusiastic supporters of purchasing things. The caravan stops beside a stream for lunch. The routine feels comfortable now. Bread appears. Cheese appears. Olives appear. At this point, you suspect the olives are somehow organizing the entire journey. Perhaps they are in charge. Nearby, several travelers discuss rumors from distant provinces. A governor has changed. A tax has increased. A road is being repaired. A frontier remains peaceful. Or perhaps not peaceful. The details vary depending on who is speaking. News travels through conversation. And conversation occasionally prioritizes entertainment over precision. Human nature remains undefeated. The afternoon passes beneath brilliant blue skies. The road climbs gently toward a ridge. As the caravan reaches the top, the lead driver suddenly raises a hand. Everyone stops. Not because of danger. Because of the view. Below lies a city. A real city. Larger than the market towns. Smaller than the great coastal ports. Yet substantial enough to dominate the surrounding countryside. Stone walls encircle dense clusters of buildings. Temples rise above rooftops. Aqueduct arches march across distant hills. Roads converge on the city from every direction. The entire landscape seems organized around it. The merchant beside you grins. This is the destination. At last. After roads and ships, storms and mountains, markets and harbors, the journey has reached its goal. Or at least this goal. Experience has taught you that merchants rarely possess only one goal. The caravan begins descending toward the city. Excitement spreads among the travelers. Some have family here. Others have business. Several simply look forward to sleeping indoors. A universal ambition. As the sun lowers toward afternoon, the city gates grow larger. Details sharpen. People become visible. Traffic thickens. The familiar energy of urban life begins spilling outward onto the roads. You realize something unexpected. A few weeks ago, every city felt entirely new. Now they feel familiar. Not identical, but understandable. You know what waits inside. Markets, workshops, baths, crowds, food, noise, life. The Roman world no longer feels like a collection of distant places. It feels connected. A network of roads, rivers, harbors, and people. A system. Complicated. Imperfect. Remarkably effective. The city gate swallows the caravan whole. One moment you are rolling through open countryside beneath a vast sky. The next, stone walls rise around you and the world narrows into streets, buildings, and people. So many people. The countryside always feels spacious. Cities feel determined to use every available inch. Traffic immediately slows. A pair of ox carts blocks part of the road. Several donkeys appear engaged in negotiations regarding movement. Pedestrians weave confidently through gaps that seem entirely inadequate. Nobody appears surprised. This happens every day. The guards at the gate barely glance at the situation. They have seen worse. Probably this morning. The caravan inches forward. Above you, apartment buildings rise several stories high. Laundry hangs from windows. Voices drift from balconies. Cooking smells spill into the streets. The city feels lived in. Not polished. Not perfect. Alive. A blacksmith's hammer rings somewhere nearby. A baker removes fresh loaves from an oven. Children race through an alley chasing one another with enough energy to power several small provinces. The merchant seems delighted. Business opportunities surround him. You are mostly interested in locating a chair. A comfortable chair. A chair with no immediate plans to travel anywhere. The caravan finally reaches a large courtyard near the commercial district. Warehouses surround the square. Laborers move crates and barrels. Accountants sit beneath awnings making calculations on wax tablets. Everywhere, people are counting things. Coins. Goods. Deliveries. Profits. Civilization runs on mathematics more than most monuments would like to admit. The merchants immediately begin working. Cargo is unloaded. Inventories checked. Agreements confirmed. You notice that successful trade looks surprisingly unromantic. Less dramatic adventure. More careful bookkeeping. History books rarely mention this. Probably because the great inventory verification of 128 sounds less exciting than a battle. Yet entire cities depend upon it. The afternoon passes peacefully. You explore nearby streets while business continues. This city feels wealthier than some you have visited. Public fountains flow continuously. Roads are well maintained. Shops display imported goods. The marketplace overflows with activity. Evidence of prosperity appears everywhere. Of course, prosperity creates its own problems. One merchant loudly complains about rising prices. Another complains about competition. A third complains about taxes. Economic success has never prevented people from finding something to worry about. Near the center of the city stands a large forum. Citizens gather beneath shaded porticos. Officials discuss civic matters. Traders negotiate contracts. Philosophers share opinions. Some opinions appear requested. Others arrive independently. A speaker addresses a small crowd from a raised platform. People listen politely. Mostly. A few listeners seem more interested in nearby food stalls. This is understandable. Ideas are important. Lunch is also important. The forum reveals something fascinating. Roads connect cities physically. Places like this connect them socially. Information flows through both. News from distant regions spreads quickly here. Trade agreements form here. Political decisions emerge here. The empire functions because people meet, talk, argue, cooperate, repeat. By evening, the merchant finally completes his business. The results seem excellent. Again, you are beginning to suspect he may actually be good at this. To celebrate, he insists upon showing several companions a local attraction. Not a bathhouse. Not a marketplace. An amphitheater. The structure dominates part of the city. Massive stone seating rises in great tiers. Archways lead beneath the stands. Thousands of people could gather here at once. The scale is astonishing. Even empty, the building feels powerful. You walk through the corridors beneath the seating areas. Stone echoes surround every footstep. Above, evening sunlight filters through arches. For a moment, the amphitheater feels almost peaceful. Which is slightly misleading. History records many things happening in places like this. Not all of them peaceful. Still, standing inside such a structure, you understand why visitors were impressed. The Romans built for scale. They built for permanence. They built things intended to make people stop and stare. 2,000 years later, the strategy remains effective. As darkness approaches, lanterns begin appearing across the city. The streets glow with warm points of light. Shops close. Homes fill with evening conversation. The day's business slowly gives way to the night's rest. You return to the inn feeling pleasantly tired. Not travel tired. Not storm tired. Not seasick tired. A better kind of tired. The sort earned through walking, exploring, and learning. From your room, you can hear distant sounds drifting through the city. Laughter. Music. Conversations. The endless background rhythm of human life. Tomorrow, the merchant plans to remain here. For once, there is no urgent departure. No race against weather. No ship waiting for favorable winds. No mountain pass demanding attention. Just another day in a thriving Roman city. A day that, at the moment, appears likely to be calm. History, naturally, is already preparing an objection. History objects to your plans almost immediately. You wake expecting an ordinary day. A quiet day. A peaceful day. Perhaps a little sightseeing. Perhaps a leisurely meal. Perhaps several uninterrupted hours during which absolutely nothing noteworthy happens. Instead, the city is celebrating. You discover this when a trumpet sounds outside your inn shortly after sunrise. Not a military trumpet. Not an emergency trumpet. A festive trumpet. A trumpet that seems extremely pleased with itself. More follow. Then drums. Then cheering. Within minutes, the entire city appears to have collectively decided that today is not a day for silence. You step outside. The streets are already crowded. Colorful banners hang from buildings. Garlands decorate doorways. Market stalls overflow into public squares. Musicians perform at intersections. Children run through the crowds carrying ribbons and flowers. Even the dogs seem more energetic than usual. A local shopkeeper notices your confusion. A festival, he explains. one of several celebrated throughout the year. The details are complicated. The enthusiasm is not. Romans enjoy festivals. Who could blame them? Life contains enough work already. A little celebration improves almost everything. The city certainly agrees. Everywhere you look, people are gathering. Families, neighbors, travelers, merchants taking suspiciously convenient breaks from commerce. The entire population seems determined to enjoy itself. You decide resistance is futile. The Forum, normally busy with business and politics, has transformed into something closer to a fair. Performers entertain crowds. Jugglers toss brightly colored balls through the air. Musicians play flutes and lyres. Storytellers gather audiences beneath shaded porticos. One performer balances atop a narrow platform while delivering jokes. The crowd laughs. You miss several references. Human humor ages unpredictably. A joke that once conquered an empire can become very confusing after 2,000 years. Food vendors have appeared everywhere. This immediately improves your opinion of the festival. The smell alone is extraordinary. Fresh bread, roasted meat, honey cakes, herbs and spices drifting through warm air. If civilizations were judged entirely by aromas, this city would be performing exceptionally well. You purchase a honey cake purely for historical research. The research proves successful. Nearby, children participate in games organized within the square. Small prizes await the winners. Great glory awaits the winners. At least according to the announcer. The prizes appear considerably more reliable. The crowd cheers enthusiastically regardless. A little later, a procession enters the Forum. Citizens line the streets. Musicians lead the way. Officials follow. Priests. Attendants. Decorated carts. The event moves slowly through the city while spectators watch from windows and rooftops. Festivals often blend religion, community, and entertainment together. The ancient world rarely separates them as neatly as modern societies sometimes do. Everything feels connected. Belief, celebration, identity, public life. The procession disappears down a side street. The crowd gradually returns to eating, talking, and enjoying the day. Which, honestly, seems to have been everyone's primary objective all along. By midday, the city has reached peak activity. Every fountain is surrounded by conversation. Every shaded courtyard contains groups of friends. Every tavern appears full. The atmosphere feels lighter than usual. Less concerned with work. More interested in enjoyment. You wander through streets you've already visited. They feel different now. Festivals change cities. Ordinary places become gathering places. Routine becomes celebration. Even familiar buildings seem transformed. At one intersection, you encounter a group of musicians performing beneath an archway. People stop to listen. Some sing along. Others simply smile and continue walking. The music drifts through the warm afternoon air. For a moment, the entire city seems synchronized. Thousands of people sharing the same day. The same celebration. The same experience. Empires are built from roads and laws and armies. Communities are built from moments like this. As afternoon fades toward evening, the festival continues. Lanterns begin appearing throughout the streets. Their warm glow reflects from stone walls and polished windows. The city becomes beautiful in a different way. Less bright. More intimate. More magical. Food vendors remain busy. Musicians continue playing. Storytellers attract new audiences. Children stubbornly refuse to become tired. An ancient tradition that remains strong today. You eventually find a place beside a fountain overlooking part of the Forum. From here, you can watch the celebration unfold around you. The sounds blend together. Music, Laughter. Conversation. Flowing water. The distant echo of footsteps. For once, nobody seems in a hurry. Nobody is rushing toward a destination. Nobody is checking weather conditions. Nobody is worrying about roads. The entire city exists comfortably in the present moment. It is a rare thing. And a valuable one. The festival finally begins, winding down late in the evening. Families return home. Vendors pack away supplies. Musicians finish their final songs. The forum slowly empties. One lantern after another disappears into the darkness. The city wakes a little later the morning after the festival. Not dramatically later. This is still the Roman world. People remain committed to productivity. But there is a noticeable difference. The streets feel quieter. The merchants move slightly slower. Several citizens wear the expression of people who enjoyed themselves thoroughly and are now reconsidering certain decisions involving wine. Civilization continues. Just with a little less enthusiasm before breakfast. You leave the inn shortly after sunrise and follow the sound of activity toward the central marketplace. Yesterday the city celebrated. Today it returns to business. And nowhere is that more obvious than here. The market is enormous. Far larger than it first appeared. Entire streets have transformed into specialized districts. One area sells grain. Another focuses on livestock. Elsewhere, merchants display pottery, textiles, tools, jewelry, spices, and imported goods from distant corners of the empire. The scale is astonishing. You quickly realize that the market functions less like a single place and more like a living organism. Everything moves. Everything exchanges. Everything flows. A cart loaded with olives arrives from the countryside. A trader purchases them. The trader sells them to shopkeepers. The shopkeepers sell them to customers. The customers eat them. The empire continues. Somewhere, another olive begins its journey. The process seems endless. You wander through the maze of stalls. Every merchant believes their goods deserve your immediate attention. Several are probably correct. A cloth seller displays fabrics dyed brilliant shades of indigo, saffron, and deep crimson. Nearby, a potter proudly arranges rows of bowls and jugs. A jeweler carefully polishes silver bracelets while watching potential customers with the concentration of a hunting hawk. Across the street, a baker wins the unofficial competition for most irresistible smell. Again, bakers possess an unfair advantage in civilization. The crowd itself is fascinating. Citizens from every level of society move through the marketplace. Laborers purchasing supplies. Wealthy households sending servants. Travelers carrying goods from distant provinces. Local farmers selling produce. Foreign merchants speaking unfamiliar languages. The market feels like the entire empire condensed into a few crowded streets. Information travels here as efficiently as goods. You pause beside a spice merchant whose stall smells like half the known world. Customers gather not only to buy spices but to hear news. Rumors spread through the crowd. Stories arrive from distant cities. Reports of harvests. Political changes. Road repairs. Shipping delays. Nobody seems entirely certain which stories are true. Yet everyone seems interested anyway. This may be one of humanity's most durable traditions. Near the center of the market stands a large weighing station. Goods are measured. Taxes calculated. Disputes resolved. Or occasionally created. A disagreement over grain quality has attracted a sizable audience. The audience contributes absolutely nothing to solving the problem. They remain deeply invested regardless. Some forms of entertainment require no stage. The merchant you traveled with eventually finds you. He appears delighted. Which means he has found another opportunity. Merchants possess a remarkable ability to locate opportunities in places ordinary people merely describe as buildings. He points toward a wealthy district beyond the market. Tomorrow, he explains, he has been invited to visit a country villa owned by one of his business associates. The invitation includes food. The word immediately improves the proposal. Apparently the villa lies beyond the city, surrounded by farmland and vineyards. A different side of Roman life. A quieter side. The merchant asks whether you would like to come. You already know the answer. Of course you would. Refusing curiosity has not gone particularly well so far. The rest of the afternoon passes among the market crowds. You watch craftsmen at work. Listen to storytellers. Sample food from several stalls under the entirely legitimate justification of cultural research. The research continues successfully. As evening approaches, the marketplace slowly changes character. Merchants begin packing away goods. Customers drift homeward. The noise softens. The pace slows. Another day of trade draws to a close. The empire has bought, sold, negotiated, argued, counted, delivered. And tomorrow it will do it all again. You return to the inn carrying a small loaf of fresh bread and a profound respect for anyone capable of managing inventory without losing their mind. Outside your window, the city settles into evening. Lanterns glow. Voices drift through the streets. Somewhere in the distance, a musician plays a slow melody. Tomorrow, for the first time in many days, you will leave the city. Not for another long journey. Not for another dangerous road. Just a short trip into the countryside. A chance to see how the wealthy live when they are not busy building roads, running markets, or arguing about olives. And if history has taught you anything, it is that even the simplest excursion usually becomes a story. The journey to the villa begins after breakfast. For once, nobody wakes before dawn. Nobody rushes. Nobody checks weather conditions every 10 minutes. The entire excursion feels suspiciously civilized. You leave the city through a smaller gate on the eastern side. The merchant rides in excellent spirits. His business associate, it seems, is both wealthy and generous. Two qualities merchants admire deeply. The road leading into the countryside is smooth and well maintained. Farmers guide carts loaded with produce toward the city markets. Shepherds move flocks across distant hillsides. Workers tend vineyards stretching across sunny slopes. Everything appears orderly, prosperous, productive. The countryside surrounding the city feels less wild than you expected. Almost every field shows signs of careful management. Stone walls divide properties. Irrigation channels guide water where it is needed. Olive groves line parts of the road. Human effort shapes the landscape everywhere you look. An empire, you realize, is not only cities. Cities receive the attention. Countryside provides the food. Several miles from the city, the villa finally comes into view. At first, it appears almost modest. Then you get closer. The scale reveals itself gradually. The main house sits atop a low hill overlooking vineyards and farmland. White stone walls gleam beneath the morning sun. Columns frame shaded walkways. Gardens surround the residence. Fountains sparkle in the light. The entire estate projects an unmistakable message. Someone here has done very well for themselves. A steward greets visitors at the entrance. The merchant is welcomed warmly. Apparently profitable business relationships encourage hospitality. You enter through a landscaped courtyard filled with flowering plants. Birds move among carefully maintained hedges. The sound of running water follows you from fountain to fountain. Romans, once again, appear determined to place water absolutely everywhere. Inside, the villa is impressive without being excessive. Mosaic floors decorate several rooms. Painted walls display scenes of landscapes and mythology. Large windows overlook the surrounding countryside. Cool air circulates through shaded corridors. Compared to crowded cities and roadside inns, the place feels astonishingly comfortable. A servant offers refreshments. You accept immediately. Experience has taught you that declining free food is rarely wise. The owner of the estate soon arrives. He is exactly what you would expect from a successful landowner. Confident. Friendly. Extremely interested in discussing agricultural production. You discover that wealthy Romans can become just as enthusiastic about farming as merchants become about trade. Perhaps more so. The owner proudly offers a tour of the estate. The vineyards come first. Rows of grapevines stretch across gentle hillsides. Workers move among them, pruning, inspecting, and maintaining the plants. Wine production requires enormous effort. The finished product receives most of the attention. The work behind it deserves more. From the vineyards, you continue to the olive groves. Hundreds of trees spread across the estate. Their twisted trunks suggest remarkable age. Some may have been growing here long before the current owner was born. Olive oil, the landowner explains, remains one of the region's most valuable products. Cooking. Lighting. Trade. The empire runs on olive oil almost as much as roads. This explains many things, including the market. The tour continues through workshops, storage buildings, and living quarters for workers. The estate functions like a small community. Farm laborers. Craftsmen. Servants. Managers. Everyone contributes to keeping the operation running. The scale surprises you. Large villas are not merely homes. They are businesses. Entire economic systems concentrated into a single property. Near midday, lunch is served beneath a covered terrace overlooking the countryside. The view is magnificent. Rolling vineyards stretch toward distant hills. Roads wind through the landscape. Tiny villages dot the horizon. The city itself appears only as a faint shape far away. For a while, conversation drifts away from commerce and agriculture. Guests discuss travel, politics, stories, local news. The pace feels slower here. The countryside follows different rhythms than the city. Seasons matter more. Harvests matter more. Weather matters much more. After lunch, you wander through the gardens. The estate grows quieter during the warmest part of the afternoon. Workers continue their tasks. Birds sing among the trees. Water flows softly through channels and fountains. The atmosphere feels almost timeless. It would be easy to imagine spending years here. Watching seasons change. Watching harvests come and go. Watching the wider world from a comfortable distance. Of course, most people do not live in villas. Most people create them. Maintain them. Work within them. The estate's beauty depends upon countless unseen hours of labor. History often hides effort behind elegance. Late in the afternoon, the merchant begins preparing for the return journey. Business has been discussed. Friendships renewed. Meals thoroughly appreciated. The visit has been a success. As you leave the villa, you look back one final time. The setting sun bathes the buildings in golden light. The vineyards glow. The fountains shimmer. The entire estate seems peaceful. Yet beyond those fields, roads continue stretching toward distant cities. Ships continue crossing seas. Markets continue bargaining. The world keeps moving. Tomorrow, you will explore another side of that world. Not the wealthy countryside. Not the crowded city. Something entirely different. A place where roads, trade, and power meet at the very edge of the empire's reach. The next morning begins with an unexpected invitation. Not from the merchant. Not from a landowner. Not even from someone attempting to sell you olives. A refreshing change. Instead, the invitation comes from a retired military officer you met during the villa visit. Over lunch, he had listened patiently to stories of roads, ships, markets, storms, and travel. Now he offers something different. A chance to visit a frontier fort. Not a distant frontier. Nothing dramatic. No barbarian hordes charging through forests. No desperate last stand beside a river. History enjoys exaggerating these things. This fort lies only a day's journey from the city. Still active. Still occupied. Still serving its purpose. The officer insists it is worth seeing. You agree almost immediately. Curiosity remains undefeated. The journey begins shortly after sunrise. A small group travels together along a military road branching away from the main trade routes. The difference becomes obvious at once. Merchant roads connect markets. Military roads connect necessities. The construction appears even more deliberate. Straighter. More direct. Less concerned with scenery. Roman engineers look at a hill and ask whether it can be crossed. Merchants look at the same hill and ask whether there is an easier route. The empire generally listens to the engineers. The countryside gradually changes. Farms become less frequent. Villages more scattered. The land feels quieter. Wilder. Not empty. Simply less crowded. The retired officer rides comfortably beside you. He spent decades in military service. Naturally, this means he possesses stories. Many stories. Most begin with phrases like, "This was a terrible idea." Several end exactly as expected. The road climbs through rolling hills. Stone markers appear at regular intervals. Small patrols occasionally pass in the opposite direction. Everyone seems to know everyone else. Or at least know someone who once borrowed something from someone else and never returned it. Military communities are often surprisingly small. By midday, the fort comes into view. At first, it looks almost ordinary. A rectangle of stone walls positioned on high ground. Functional. Practical. Then you get closer. Watchtowers rise above the walls. Gatehouses guard the entrance. Barracks stretch across the interior. Storage buildings occupy one side. Training grounds another. The entire complex has been designed with one goal. Efficiency. A soldier greets the retired officer warmly. Clearly they have known one another for years. Possibly decades. Military friendships seem particularly durable. Perhaps because shared hardship creates strong bonds. Or perhaps because everyone remembers exactly who saved them from paperwork. The tour begins inside the walls. The fort feels remarkably organized. Everything has a place. Everything serves a purpose. Roads run in straight lines. Buildings follow predictable layouts. Supplies are carefully stored. Records carefully maintained. Civilization often appears messy. Armies attempt to compensate. The barracks are surprisingly simple. Rows of sleeping spaces. Storage areas. Personal belongings. Nothing luxurious. Nothing unnecessary. Soldiers spend much of their lives here. The accommodations prioritize practicality over comfort. A philosophy the Roman military applies enthusiastically. Nearby, several recruits are training. Wooden practice weapons clash together. Instructors shout corrections. Sweat and determination fill the air. The process looks exhausting. Effective perhaps. But exhausting. The officer watches with approval. Discipline, he explains, matters more than heroics. Empires are rarely maintained through dramatic speeches. They are maintained through routine. Practice. Preparation. The boring things. History often ignores the boring things. Reality does not. You continue toward the supply warehouses. Inside, food, equipment, tools, and materials fill carefully organized shelves. The scale is impressive. An army marches on its stomach. A fort survives on logistics. Every sack of grain. Every spare sandal. Every barrel of oil. Someone had to make it. Transport it. Store it. Track it. Behind every military achievement stands a very tired administrator. The afternoon passes quickly. You watch drills. Visit workshops. Observe blacksmiths repairing equipment. Speak with soldiers stationed far from their original homes. Many come from different provinces, different cultures, different languages. Yet they serve together. The empire connects people in unexpected ways. Late in the day, you climb one of the watchtowers. The view stretches for miles. Rolling countryside. Distant roads. Scattered farms. Tiny villages. The landscape appears peaceful. And perhaps that is the point. Most successful defenses look uneventful. The absence of crisis often means the system is working. The officer stands beside you quietly. For a while, neither of you speaks. The wind moves across the hills. Birds circle far below. The world feels enormous from up here. And connected. Roads leading toward cities. Cities supporting armies. Armies protecting roads. Everything linked together. A chain stretching across the empire. As evening approaches, you begin the journey back. The fort grows smaller behind you. The road leads once again toward civilization. Toward markets. Toward inns. Toward merchants planning new opportunities. The retired officer seems content. The visit has reminded him of old years. Old friends. Old duties. You understand the feeling. Travel often reveals places. Sometimes it reveals time. The sun sets behind the hills. Long shadows stretch across the road. Ahead, the city waits. Familiar now. Almost comfortable. Tomorrow, however, a new decision awaits. The merchant has concluded his business. The roads are calling again. And for the first time since arriving here, the journey home is beginning to take shape. The merchant announces his decision over breakfast. This is unfortunate. Not because the decision is bad. Because it is delivered with enthusiasm. Enthusiastic merchants are dangerous. They have plans. The plan, as it turns out, is simple. His business in the city is complete. Contract signed. Goods purchased. Future arrangements negotiated. Profit secured. The time has come to begin the return journey. Not immediately. Tomorrow. Which somehow feels both reassuring and alarming. You have grown comfortable here. The streets are familiar. The marketplace feels almost predictable. You know which baker produces the best bread. This is valuable information. Possibly the most valuable information acquired during the entire expedition. Yet the road has a peculiar pull. Spend enough time traveling and standing still begins to feel temporary. You spend the remainder of the day wandering through the city one last time. Not sightseeing exactly. More like saying goodbye. The forum is busy as always. Merchants negotiate beneath shaded porticos. Citizens debate local matters. Children chase one another around fountains. Life continues whether travelers remain or leave. There is something comforting about that. The baker recognizes you. A dangerous development. You have apparently purchased enough bread to become memorable. He offers a friendly greeting and insists you take a fresh loaf for the road tomorrow. You accept. Refusing goodwill seems foolish. Refusing bread seems impossible. The afternoon drifts by pleasantly. You revisit favorite streets. Pause beside familiar fountains. Watch craftsmen at work. Listen to conversations echoing through marketplaces. The city no longer feels ancient. It feels lived in. Human. A place filled with ordinary people pursuing ordinary lives. Perhaps that has been the greatest lesson of the journey. History is not monuments. History is people. The monuments simply survive longer. As evening approaches, the merchant invites several companions to a final dinner. Nothing elaborate. Nothing ceremonial. Just friends sharing a meal before departure. The atmosphere is relaxed. Stories are exchanged. Jokes repeated. Several events from the journey have already become exaggerated. This process appears to happen almost immediately. The storm grows worse. The waves grow higher. The wagon wheel grows more stuck. Memory is remarkably creative. The retired officer joins the gathering. So does the villa owner. Several local merchants arrive. For a few hours, roads and business and obligations fade into the background. People simply enjoy one another's company. Outside, lanterns glow across the city. Inside, conversation continues late into the evening. Eventually, one by one, guests begin departing. Farewells are exchanged. Promises made. Future visits discussed. Some may happen. Others may remain pleasant intentions. Such is the nature of travel. You return to your room overlooking the city. The window stands open. Cool night air drifts inside. Beyond the rooftops, stars shine above the sleeping streets. Tomorrow, the journey turns homeward. Not home in the modern sense. More a gradual return through roads already traveled. Places already visited. Memories already made. Yet return journeys are never identical to departures. The road remains the same. The traveler changes. That thought follows you into sleep. Morning arrives quickly. The city gates open. The wagons are loaded. The animals prepared. The merchant, naturally, appears delighted. The return caravan is smaller than the one that brought you here. Several travelers remain behind. Others join for different destinations. Road companions come and go. The road itself endures. The city slowly recedes behind you. Walls become distant shapes. Towers shrink against the horizon. Soon only the countryside remains. Fields. Roads. Sky. The familiar rhythm returns almost immediately. Wheels turning. Hooves striking earth. The endless steady movement of travel. Yet everything feels slightly different. Perhaps because there is no urgency now. No unknown destination ahead. No uncertainty about where the road leads. The pressure of arrival has vanished. What remains is the journey itself. The landscape unfolds beneath clear skies. Farmers work in distant fields. Shepherds guide flocks across hillsides. Travelers pass in both directions. Everyone moving toward something. Everyone leaving something behind. By late afternoon, the caravan reaches a roadside inn you vaguely remember from weeks earlier. The same courtyard. The same stable. Possibly the same suspicious rooster. The bird watches arrivals with unsettling confidence. Some things never change. That evening, after dinner, you sit outside beneath a sky filled with stars. The sounds of the inn drift softly through the darkness. Laughter. Conversations. Clinking cups. The familiar music of travelers at rest. The road home has begun. Not dramatically. Not with grand speeches or emotional farewells. Simply with another mile traveled. Another inn reached. Another sunset watched from beside a road. Which, in many ways, feels exactly right. Tomorrow there will be more roads. More stories. And one final chapter still waiting somewhere ahead. The return journey settles into a comfortable rhythm. Not every chapter of history involves dramatic events. Sometimes the road simply continues. And honestly, after storms, mountains, crowded harbors, and ambitious merchants, this feels perfectly acceptable. The caravan leaves the inn beneath a sky painted with pale shades of gold and blue. Morning mist lingers across the fields. Dew sparkles on grass beside the road. Birdsong drifts from nearby trees. The world feels calm. The kind of calm that travelers learn to appreciate. Because it rarely announces how long it plans to stay. For several days, the road carries you steadily through familiar landscapes. Villages reappear. Bridges return. Roadside stations emerge from memory. Places that once seemed entirely new now feel strangely recognizable. You know where the wells are. You know which inns serve decent food. You even recognize certain landmarks. A lone oak tree beside a crossroads. A weathered shrine overlooking a valley. A ruined tower standing on a distant hill. The road has become familiar. And familiarity changes everything. The first time you travel a route, every mile feels uncertain. The second time, the road begins feeling like an old acquaintance. Not necessarily a pleasant acquaintance, but a known one. One afternoon, the caravan pauses beside a river where you once stopped weeks earlier. The same water flows beneath the same bridge. Yet the place feels different. Not because it has changed. Because you have. You notice details you missed before. The way sunlight reflects from the current. The patterns worn into the stones by countless travelers. The names carved into a wooden railing. Tiny reminders that every road carries generations of stories. The merchant joins you beside the riverbank. For once, he is not discussing business. A remarkable achievement. Instead, he reflects upon travel. Roads connect cities, he says. But they also connect people. The phrase sounds simple. Perhaps even obvious. Yet looking around, it feels true. Without roads, the villa owner never meets the harbor merchant. The frontier soldier never receives supplies. The farmer never sells grain in distant markets. The traveler never discovers what lies beyond the next hill. Civilizations are built from connections. Roads make connections possible. The thought stays with you long after the caravan resumes moving. Days pass. The weather remains kind. The roads remain passable. The wagons remain intact. This level of success feels almost suspicious. History seems unusually cooperative. Naturally, everyone begins relaxing. The guards tell stories. Drivers sing songs. Travelers share meals. The atmosphere grows lighter. Even the merchant appears content. A rare and beautiful sight. One evening, the caravan reaches a small hill overlooking the countryside. The leader decides to stop early. No particular reason. The view is simply too good to ignore. You approve immediately. Some decisions require no further discussion. Campfires appear across the hillside. Meals are prepared. Animals graze nearby. The sun begins sinking toward the horizon. The entire landscape glows amber and gold. Fields stretch endlessly into the distance. Roads wind across valleys. Villages sit among clusters of trees. Smoke rises lazily from chimneys. The scene feels peaceful in a way that cities rarely do. Not better. Just different. The merchant sits beside the fire and studies the view. Eventually he laughs. You ask why. He gestures toward the road. All this effort, he says. Thousands of miles of roads. Countless bridges. Endless repairs. Entire governments maintaining them. And yet every traveler still complains. You cannot argue with this observation. Travelers may be one of history's most reliable constants. Give them excellent roads. They want better roads. Give them good weather. They worry about tomorrow's weather. Give them a comfortable inn. They discuss a more comfortable inn they once visited. Human beings remain wonderfully consistent across centuries. Darkness gradually settles over the countryside. Stars emerge overhead. One by one. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The same stars you watched from the ship. The same stars above the frontier fort. The same stars shining over cities, farms, and villages across the empire. The realization is strangely comforting. No matter where the road carried you, the sky remained familiar. A shared roof above an enormous world. The fire burns lower. Conversations soften. Travelers drift towards sleep. Tomorrow, the journey will continue. And soon, sooner than expected, the place where all of this began will appear once more on the horizon. The road home is shortening. The story, though not quite finished, is approaching its final pages. The final days of the journey arrive quietly. There is no grand announcement. No messenger galloping ahead to declare that the adventure is nearly complete. The road simply grows shorter. The landmarks become more familiar. The distances between memories begin shrinking. Travel often works this way. You spend weeks moving toward a destination. Then suddenly find yourself moving away from it. And before long, the place where everything began appears ahead once again. The caravan continues through countryside now bathed in early summer sunlight. Fields sway gently in the breeze. Farmers work among rows of crops. Children wave as travelers pass. Life unfolds according to rhythms far older than any empire. The merchant seems unusually thoughtful these days. Perhaps successful business encourages reflection. Or perhaps even merchants occasionally run out of things to calculate. Either possibility feels noteworthy. One afternoon, while following a road beside a broad river, he points toward the water. Boats drift downstream carrying cargo. Grain. Wine. Timber. Goods destined for cities far away. Roads connect the empire. Rivers help carry it. The Roman world, you realize, is less a collection of places than a web of movement. People moving. Goods moving. Ideas moving. Everything connected. Everything in motion. The journey has shown you roads and harbors. Markets and villas. Forts and farms. Yet beneath all of them lies the same principle. Connection. A surprisingly simple foundation for something so vast. The caravan reaches one final roadside inn before the journey's end. You recognize it immediately. The courtyard. The stable. The weathered sign hanging above the entrance. You stayed here what feels like a lifetime ago. Back when every road seemed mysterious. Back when every city felt distant. Back when you still believed wagon rides might become comfortable. A charmingly optimistic period. The innkeeper even recognizes the merchant. This leads to cheerful greetings, shared stories, and a lengthy discussion about local news. Travelers come and go. Innkeepers remain. As a result, they often know more than anyone else. That evening becomes one of the most pleasant of the entire journey. No storms threaten outside. No difficult mountain passes await tomorrow. No urgent business remains unresolved. The road has been kind. Not always easy, but kind. After dinner, several travelers gather outside beneath the stars. A small fire crackles in the darkness. Someone produces a flute. A soft melody drifts through the night air. No audience. No performance. Just music. Simple and unhurried. The sort of moment history rarely records. Yet the sort people remember. You look upward. The stars shine brightly above the countryside. The same stars that guided sailors across the sea. The same stars watched by soldiers on distant frontiers. The same stars hanging above crowded cities and quiet farms alike. For a moment, the empire feels impossibly large. Then strangely small. A vast network of people sharing roads, markets, stories, and skies. The fire burns lower. Travelers begin retiring for the night. Tomorrow, the journey ends. Or at least this journey. Roads never truly end. They simply lead somewhere else. The thought follows you as you finally head inside. Sleep comes easily. The next morning arrives clear and bright. The caravan departs shortly after sunrise. Everyone senses it now. The final day. The last stretch of road. The last miles beneath turning wheels. The landscape unfolds peacefully around you. Villages pass. Fields drift by. Bridges carry you over familiar streams. Everything feels both ordinary and significant. By afternoon, the merchant points ahead. There. In the distance. The place where this long wandering adventure first began. At first it appears only as a faint shape against the horizon. Then gradually details emerge. Buildings. Roads. Walls. The outline grows clearer with every mile. A curious feeling settles over you. Part satisfaction. Part nostalgia. Part disbelief that so much time has passed. The road has carried you across seas and mountains. Through markets and festivals. Past vineyards and forts. Into cities filled with strangers who slowly became familiar. And now it has carried you back. The sun begins lowering behind you. Golden light stretches across the landscape. The destination grows nearer. Yet the caravan does not rush. No one does. There is no need. Some endings deserve a slower pace. As evening approaches, the familiar skyline glows beneath the setting sun. Tomorrow, you will arrive. Tonight, however, one final sunset belongs to the road. And so the travelers continue onward beneath amber light, carrying with them stories gathered from every mile behind them. The journey is almost over. One chapter remains. The final morning arrives quietly. No storms. No broken wheels. No panic merchants chasing runaway opportunities. No dramatic last-minute complications arranged by history for narrative purposes. Just sunlight. Soft and golden. Spreading across the road ahead. The caravan breaks camp shortly after dawn. Everyone seems calmer today. Even the animals. Perhaps they sense the journey is ending. Or perhaps they are simply enjoying a morning during which nobody asks them to cross a mountain pass. Either explanation feels reasonable. The road stretches forward through familiar countryside. Fields shimmer beneath the early light. Birds dart between hedgerows. Farmers begin another ordinary day of work. The world continues exactly as it always has. And that, somehow, feels appropriate. Most of history happens this way. Quietly. Not through battles or speeches. Not through dramatic moments recorded in books. But through ordinary mornings. Ordinary roads. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. You have spent weeks traveling through the Roman world. You have crossed harbors crowded with ships. Walked through cities filled with merchants. Visited villas overlooking vineyards. Climbed watchtowers on distant frontiers. Shared meals with sailors, soldiers, farmers, traders, and travelers. Yet looking back, the most memorable parts are not always the grandest ones. A loaf of warm bread from a city baker. The sound of rain on an inn roof. Lanterns glowing across a harbor at night. A conversation beside a river. Stars reflected on dark water. The little moments remain. The road teaches this lesson repeatedly. Civilizations are often measured by monuments. Life is measured by moments. The caravan continues steadily onward. As the sun climbs higher, familiar landmarks begin appearing more frequently. A bridge you crossed long ago. A stand of trees beside the road. A weathered milestone half hidden by grass. Each one feels like a greeting from the past. The merchant rides quietly for much of the morning. An unusual condition. Eventually, he breaks the silence. A successful journey, he says. You agree. Not because every plan worked perfectly. Many did not. Not because every road was easy. Many were not. But because journeys are not remembered for perfection. They are remembered for experience. The merchant nods thoughtfully. Then immediately begins discussing a possible future voyage. Some people never truly leave the road. By midday, the destination finally lies before you. Clear. Unmistakable. The place where this long wandering story began. The sight feels both familiar and new. Perhaps because you are no longer the same traveler who first set out. The roads have changed you. The cities have changed you. The people have changed you. Travel always does. Even when the traveler does not notice immediately. The caravan slows as it approaches. No one seems eager to rush the final moments. The wheels continue turning. Steady. Patient. The same rhythm that carried you across the empire. The same rhythm that carried countless travelers before you. And countless travelers after. Roads, after all, belong to everyone. Generations pass. Empires rise. Empires fall. The roads remain. Eventually, the journey reaches its end. Not with celebration. Not with fanfare. Simply with arrival. The most ancient conclusion of all travel. People dismount. Goods are unloaded. Farewells exchanged. The merchant shakes your hand warmly. The road has treated us well, he says. Mostly. You both know what mostly includes. The storms. The mud. The seasickness. The suspicious in mattresses. The goat that attempted to eat part of someone's luggage. History is rarely tidy. That is part of its charm. One by one, the travelers drift away toward their own lives. New destinations. New responsibilities. New stories. Soon the crowd begins thinning. The wagons disappear. The horses vanish down side streets. The noise fades. And at last, for the first time in many weeks, there is nowhere else you need to go. You pause for a moment. Looking back. Not at a single road. But at all of them. The harbors. The markets. The mountains. The cities. The quiet countryside. The countless ordinary people whose lives formed the true heart of the journey. History often remembers emperors. This journey remembered everyone else. The sailors navigating beneath starlight. The innkeepers tending fires. The farmers working fields. The soldiers standing watch. The bakers waking before dawn. The merchants forever chasing the next opportunity. Together, they built the world you traveled through. Together, they carried civilization forward one ordinary day at a time. The afternoon light softens. A gentle breeze stirs the trees. Somewhere nearby, a bell rings. Life continues. As it always does. And perhaps that is the most comforting thought of all. Long after roads crumble. Long after cities change. Long after names are forgotten. People will still gather around meals. Still tell stories. Still watch sunsets. Still wonder what lies beyond the next hill. The same small human habits repeated across centuries. Simple. Familiar. Enduring. And as the day slowly drifts toward evening, the road behind you grows quiet. The journey is complete. The empire rests beneath a sky of fading gold. Lanterns will soon begin glowing in distant windows. Families will gather for supper. Travelers will settle into inns. Sailors will watch the stars emerge above dark water. Somewhere, another wagon will begin another journey. But not tonight. Tonight, the road finally lets you rest. So the sun sinks lower. The shadows lengthen. The world grows still. And beneath the endless sky of the ancient world, your long Roman journey gently comes to an end. Good night. Sweet dreams.